this meeting started on time because I know a lot of people have a lot to say, and so welcome to our special meeting tonight. It's the February 9th meeting of Eureka City Council. Tonight's meeting is a special meeting that is just on a single topic. So I'm going to read this as it's written here. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the public shall be provided an opportunity to speak only on items that are listed on the special meeting agenda. So we're not going to have any general public comment tonight. If you want to speak, it's only about the items that we are talking about. With that, I am going to ask for a roll call to start the meeting.
Mayor Seaman?
Here.
Councilmember Castellano?
Here.
Councilmember Moulton?
Here.
Councilmember Arroyo?
Here.
Councilmember Bauer?
Here.
Councilmember Burgell?
Here.
All right. And I would like to ask for a report out of closed session since we did have a closed session tonight. Mr. City Attorney, is there anything to report out?
Thank you, Mayor. No reportable actions out of closed session.
All right. So again, welcome to the meeting. I just mentioned that public comment tonight is specifically for this item, but that is how we are going to start the meeting. So if you would like to make a comment about the 3rd and G mixed-use public-private development resolution,
I believe we were going to do that after the staff report so that the public could hear before they provided public comment.
That's what I thought too, but on the agenda it says A, and then it has a staff report second.
That's just, yeah. Okay.
So should we do the staff report first?
Yes.
Okay. Then, in that case, we will, I don't even know who is going to be doing this. Is this going to be City Manager Slattery?
Yes, it will, Mayor Seaman.
Alrighty.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. This item here before you is a resolution that is being recommended for adoption for a mixed-use public-private partnership for a mixed-use development on the public parking lots between 3rd and the Alley and G and H streets behind the Lost Coast Brewery. For tonight's presentation, we are going to have Garrett Sharton with Servitas start off the presentation to provide a presentation about what the development is. I will follow Garrett and provide some background to this project as well as address some community concerns. And then finally, we will have Special Project Manager from Traffic Engineering, Scott Elsmore, discuss some concerns with parking and talk about the alternatives that staff has come up with. So first, I want to introduce Garrett Sharton with Servitas. He'll be doing a presentation remotely. Garrett?
Okay. Just make sure I can share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see that okay and hear me okay?
Yep, it's looking and sounding good.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. And thanks for allowing me to present this tonight. It's an exciting progress report on the work that's been done so far. And thank you for letting me participate virtually. I had an unfortunate test result a couple days ago. So with that, we've got an agenda for this evening, and we're going to cover a lot of high-level topics. And as Miles said, we're happy to answer any questions. The team that we've assembled for this project is quite the team of experts. Humboldt Transit Authority, I'm going to turn on my laser pointer here. Humboldt Transit Authority is pursuing a substantial grant in support of this project and in support of their operations. Schatz Energy Research Center is doing most of the heavy lifting on the grant application and have been just amazing to work with. They've brought on Peggy Martinez at Creative Inclusion, who's been really kind of a force of nature, making sure that this project is responsive and inclusive for everyone that would need to use these services. Smith Group, they are leaders in urban and transit design and a kind of world-renowned architecture firm that are focusing on the grant application process, but also the ground floor uses and making sure that we tie in to those uses in an appropriate manner. FFKR is going to be the architect of record. They're an architecture firm that Servitas is very familiar and comfortable with, and will be the one leading the design efforts through completion. And then the underwriter that we selected for this team is the largest municipal bond underwriter in the US, but really they're kind of forging a new trail when it comes to workforce housing underwriting, finding new and creative ways to bring this type of housing to market when the private market is failing to do so. Just a little bit more about Servitas. So Servitas, we are a minority and woman-owned business, and we specialize in public-private partnerships, P3 deals, if you will. And P3 housing, that's what we do exclusively. Our executive leadership team has experience in a wide variety of housing and has completed and managed projects at scale. So over 60,000 beds all over the US. And the type of development that we do is very niche. It's a DBFOM, so design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. And we view our role as serving at the pleasure of our client or our partner, which is the landowner. In this case, it would be the city of Eureka. So what are we proposing? What have we been working on? We wanted to use the Imagine Humboldt plan as really kind of a jumping off point to build something that would fit in very well in the core of Eureka's downtown. It would include a first floor transit center and ground floor retail, an active courtyard that would be safe and secure, and workforce housing and student housing. And you'll notice this photo here. This was actually by happenstance. We studied the downtown architecture. We wanted to make sure that it would fit in well to the existing character. And these neoclassical elements really popped out at us. And so that's why you see it relates so well to, I think this is the old courthouse building.
The old City Hall building.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes. So old City Hall building. So what are project goals and program? So as I mentioned, HTA is pursuing a substantial grant, and those funds will help procure new fuel efficient, modern electric buses, also fueling stations. And then we're also going to partially subsidize this development. On the ground floor here, this is where we imagine the intermodal transit hub. And then on this side, if you can see my laser pointer, this is the third, to orient you, this would be the 3rd and G intersection here. This would be retail. And then we have the Earth Center monument signage with a plaza in the middle, workforce housing above the retail center, and then solar panels on the roof of that building. And then to break up the massing to make sure that, it's not just one giant building kind of overtaking a city block, we've put this plaza in place and then allowed these buildings to be 2 different heights to give it kind of like more organic, that it kind of grew in place, look and feel to it. And so we'd have student housing above the intermodal transit hub here, and then an active rooftop on this structure. The rents and unit matrix here, you'll notice that almost all of these units will be rents that conform at 60% of area median income. So this would be in that kind of workforce range. And then we are pursuing some master lease support from area health centers for their private workforce needs as well. So how are we going to finance this? Servitas has secured over $1 billion in tax-exempt bond financing over the past 20 years for this type of housing in particular. HTA is applying for that substantial grant, and they're in pursuit of that right now. We are seeking master lease support from area employers, including from area colleges and universities. And then after, once we kind of secure all that and we negotiate a ground lease with the city of Eureka, I wanted to call out here that all excess cash flow from the project would be remitted back to the city of Eureka in the form of a ground lease payment. What are we going to use these funds for? Well, about $8.5 million go toward the transit-oriented portions of the project. About 21.5 go to the housing elements, for a total of $30 million. This is the kind of a beautiful rendering of the 3rd and H Street. So to orient you, this would be the 3rd and H Street intersection. And you see those neoclassical elements again with the arched windows and the porthole windows. I thought it was kind of a win for the project that we have successfully budgeted, that it's 100% masonry. So, you know, there's not, it's really kind of that old world architecture style that we can afford in the modern era that we've managed to pull off here so far. And here's another view. Miles mentioned the alley behind, and that is this street right here. And so we imagine this would be like ride share or taxi, pickup, drop off. These canopies make it easy for patrons to get on and off during inclement weather. This is another really cool shot. You can kind of see what that activated rooftop could look like. And we imagine this would mostly be used for students in this side of the building. And then we have got the solar panels on the workforce housing building and the active courtyard in the middle. And you can kind of see that its scale and placement and massing really do fit within the architecture of downtown Eureka quite well. And then this fun last shot just showed what this Earth Center courtyard space could really look like in the evening. I do want to call out that we are cognizant of and designing for maintaining safety and security in this space, especially after hours. And so we have some strategies and tactics to deploy to make sure that happens. We've continued this neoclassical arched concept that are on the windows through these pillars in the bottom. And we imagine that there would be some type of garage door here for a restaurant or something of the sort to allow patrons to spill out into the space and enjoy themselves. So that's my progress report for now. And like Miles said, we're happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions right now on council?
So, yeah, if we could just hold the questions until after when we get all the presentation, then we can just assign the appropriate person to answer it. So, Assistant City Manager Powell, could you bring up the PowerPoint? Before I get into the background of this project, I do want to say that staff is recommending an addition to the resolution, and we want to make sure that requirements of Government Code Section 37364 is reflected in the resolution, and so we're making the recommendation to add to paragraph 1C in parentheses F1A to that code section, and then also add a new paragraph 7 under the now therefore that says that the developer will meet the requirements of Government Code Sections 37364, subdivisions B, C, and D in parentheses. So as far as a background on this project, we have to go back to the general plan. The general plan was adopted back in 2018, and we did a lot of public meetings associated with that general plan. In November of 2017, we held a workshop at the Wharfinger called Set the Tone for Your Zone. There were approximately 200 community members in attendance at this public meeting. The main gist of that meeting was to decide what we wanted to see the future of Eureka to look like. There was discussion about pre-development, pre-1950-60 development standards and versus the 1950 development standards that we were under at the time. Basically, it was are we emphasizing infill? Are we having an emphasis on parking? Are we building buildings out to the property lines? And are we taking, our floor area issues to the max and getting as much height out of our buildings? So this is an example of our pre-1950-60s development in Old Town, built out to the property lines, tall structures, large floor area ratios, a lot of density. In the 1950s-60s zoning code, which we were under at the time, that's very much so changed. During from 1870s to the 1940s, development in Eureka emphasized building tall to the property lines with high floor area ratios. Post-1950s-60s development standards were adopted towards small buildings with large parking lots. The city actually mandated standards, not development preferences. Developers did not elect to construct small buildings. They were actually required by the city to construct mall buildings, and the city greatly reduced and in many areas eliminated the ability of property owners to construct multi-story buildings. So the results of this meeting and other associated meetings was that the overwhelming response was that we wanted to get back to our roots, have traditional standards, small government, simple rules, and streamlined development. And so the process associated with the general plan update, there's been a lot of public meetings associated with this. Since 2016, there's been over 30 notice public meetings and hearings related to the changing of the city's development standards following the principles through the adoption of the new general plan, through the housing element, and all of the associated zoning code updates.
City Manager Slattery, can I interrupt you for just a minute and
Yes.
ask, we're in a very full room. I'd ask everybody to please put their masks on. Next week, that will be a different issue, but this week, that is still the rule.
And just to be clear, Mayor Seaman, the next meeting will be requiring masks. It won't be until Wednesday until that changes.
Oh, that's right. I just said next week there'll be a discussion. So I didn't know what was going to happen for sure, but right now, for a fact, we still need masks to be on. Thank you.
Okay. The next topic I want to cover is the public noticing related directly to this project. Back in November 16th of 2021, there was an agenda item on the council meeting with an MOU with the Humboldt Transit Authority depicting that this property is going to be looked at for an intermodal transit center as well as housing. And on January 26th of 2022, staff met with Eureka Main Street to discuss concerns related to the project. On January 31st, 2022, staff mailed a postcard to every property owner within a 900-foot radius of the development site, which is much greater than even a public hearing, which is not required for this, but we wanted to make sure that people were noticed. Then on February 1st, we had the council meeting to exempt this property as exempt this property from the surplus lands legislation. And on that same day, we worked with Eureka Rescue Mission and distributed flyers related to this project within a 300-foot radius of the project site. And then, of course, there was the noticing related to this meeting for this public meeting tonight to discuss the actual project. There will be future public input. As council is aware and the public, we awarded a waterfront plan, a master plan to Dudek, who is currently working on that master plan. There will be a public meeting to receive input. This master plan is to kind of implement the policies outlined in the general plan and look at infill in the waterfront area and look at, what properties have the ability to create higher densities. So March 10th, 2022 will be the first of a series of public meetings to discuss that, which also includes another updated parking study related to that and certain mitigation measures that could come along with parking issues. The Save the Date flyer is in the February newsletter this month. The newsletter for March will have the webinar link, and it'll be posted on our website and social media on March 1st. In addition to that meeting, there'll be 4 additional public meetings to discuss the waterfront plan. There'll be a community survey, and then there'll also be 5 stakeholder meetings related to this as well. So those are some future opportunities for public input. Some other community concerns, and just so you know, the traffic engineer, special project manager Ellsmore will be discussing some of the mitigation measures that we've come up to go along with this development. And we'll also talk about the amount of parking studies that have been done over the years, both during COVID and pre-COVID, and discussing the utilization and what the use of certain parking lots are and how we've come up with a mitigation measure related to parking. Another concern that's been brought up by the public is about the parking assessment district. This parking lot is one of 4 parking lots that were purchased and built for parking lots through a bond that was issued in 1955. That bond was issued in 1955. It established 4 parking lots, including the project site. In 1964, the bond was paid off. The retirement of those bonds brought an end to the parking assessments for all of the property owners. And after that, the only money that was going into the parking assessment district was from parking meters that were on the street. In 1989, those parking meters went away. And so ever since 1989, there's been no funds putting into the parking assessment district. The obligation to maintain those were based on the bonds, and now that they're paid off, they can move on as long as council approves whatever the use is other than parking. So similar to the 8th and G spot, which is also one of the parking assessment, staff will be back to you to hold a public hearing to utilize this spot if approved for an alternative use to parking. That is my background related to this, and now we'll introduce Special Project Manager Elsmore to discuss parking and some of the mitigation measures that we've come up with.
Thank you. Can I share screen here, Pam? Is that possible?
Can you?
Yeah.
I think, Pam, you may have to take off mine.
And also, do I need to say something about the decorum rule so that we could address the issue of people not following the rules? Yeah. I can't remember what the exact language was, but it has to do with decorum. So, Captain Stevens, whatever you need to do. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, thanks. So give me a second here. Let's see.
No, it'll work.
There we go. Is that showing up on the screen there?
It's just a blank City of Eureka screen. Oh, there you are.
Perfect. Okay. So good evening. I'm Scott Elsmore, Transportation Project Manager with the Public Works Department. We oversee and manage parking in the city. So I'm here tonight to talk about current parking trends in our public parking lots, kind of within the downtown, Old Town areas. So this map is kind of shows the downtown area, Old Town area, with some blue P where our public parking lots are. So within the downtown, Old Town core, there are 19 developed parking lots and one large undeveloped lot at the foot of D Street. These lots are a mixture of all day and 2-hour parking, with some having parking meters. City staff survey these lots on an annual basis to determine both hourly and daily occupancy and vacancy, and have done so for at least 20 years. Throughout these surveys, data has shown that there's consistently available parking throughout the public lot system, even during the busiest times. So as part of the Earth Center proposal, the city, in conjunction with Humboldt Transit Authority, are including a free shuttle service throughout the downtown, Old Town areas to improve access to the public lot system. So if you look at this map, you'll see a purple dotted line, which is a conceptual route of a shuttle service. The actual route is flexible and will be designed to assist as many people as possible. And to give you an idea of what parking availability is throughout the public lot system, I have some historical parking data on the next slide. So a little background on the data here. So the data portrayed on the little spreadsheet on top of the map is in regards to 13 specific lots. So they're notated in purple or purplish hue on the map. The data of this survey is collected in 2019. We collect them every year. The data I'm portraying is 2019, so it's pre-COVID impacts. And specifically, I'm showing data for lots that are not designated for potential housing, so it's not including third G and H or any of those ones. I'm not including on-street parking, which we know there's significant among these areas, and I'm not including the large gravel lot at the foot of D Street. So what this table shows us are simply the parking lot name or location, and then total spaces in it, and then through different time periods of the day, how many vehicles are parked in it. So as you can see, the lots vary throughout the day, and typically our busiest times are between 11 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. So for these 13 lots kind of identified in the core area that are along this potential route, there's a total of 466 spaces within these parking lots. During the peak times, these lots are used approximately a little over 50%, which means 466 spaces. At the busiest time, there's approximately 218 available spots, which is a significant amount of spots. Looking back at data, similar data for previous years, very same trends, very similar trends, and similar numbers as well. So The shuttle service, the free shuttle service as part of this project is conceptual and can be modified to best suit, the demand of what we need down there in Old Town. So it's conceptual in the sense of we drew a basic route on there that we thought kind of made sense, that would be close to on-street parking, public parking. The shuttle would be free. As drawn out here in this map, it's approximately a 5 to 7 minute route. So it's fairly compact. It comes within 1 block or less of 13 public parking lots, as well as all the on-street parking. The vehicle would be electric and could be hailed, be like a hail service where you raise your hand and stop the vehicle, as well as going to individual planned stops. It's an open concept and intended to serve as many people as possible and try to, get to all these outlying lots and where some additional parking is and make it easier for folks. So that's kind of our plan there. In addition, the city is also working on a parking study to look at ways of improving parking management in our downtown, Old Town areas. So we're in the midst of that process. We've received a lot of public comment so far on a public outreach survey. So we'll have an upcoming stakeholder meeting through Eureka Main Street, as well as a future council meeting. Attached here is just the link to our website, as well as a website, a link there. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach me through that site or the city of Eureka, and I can answer questions later as well.
Cute kids. So with that, we can open up the questions for council, and we can.
So does council have
Sign the
any
post-
questions to any of the folks who spoke today? Councilmember O'Royal.
Scott, could you tell us again what the website is for the parking study? I saw it on there, but I just if anyone's listening and they didn't see the link.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me give me a second here. I'll share screen and I can pop it back up there. There we go. That should be up there now.
Yep.
Okay, so for anyone, just because I think that the footer on the TV sometimes covers it up, I'm not sure whether that's visible or not, but eurekaparkingstudy.com is just for folks that might not be able to read the little text. So thank you.
Great.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Oh, also, Pam, we need to turn chat off. Chat off the Zoom. Chat's on.
Gotcha. And Mayor, I just wanted to announce that we did set up room 207 with Zoom. It has a large screen. If you'd like to spread out a little bit, you can go down and watch the meeting from there.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Councilmember Castellano.
Just a quick question. I imagine, the time frame for implementation to construction to people living in it is somewhat variable, but could you give us a sense of, what we're looking at in terms of maybe people actually living there and enjoying the apartments?
So I think Garrett could help expand on this, but from the city's perspective, right now we're working on our updated housing element. We had a meeting with HCD this week. We had a discussion with them. Once we get our updated housing element to them, there'll be a 60-day review period. And then after that 60-day review period, it'll be up to Servitas to determine. And I think he's got a nice Gantt chart there. Garrett, you want to talk about this?
It's a very nice Gantt chart. Where our goal right now is that we can hit Q3 of 2024. Because we're contemplating a student housing element, it's important that we deliver housing in time for an academic calendar. So it's either 2024 or 2025. But, that's one of the benefits of a P3 partner is the benefit of speed, and that we're going to try to move quickly.
Councilmember Royal.
So I've gotten a number of questions about the lot opposite this property on G Street on the other side. Could you just speak to what's happening with that? I assume that question would be going to our staff and how that's currently used and what we might be seeing there.
So I think while I'm speaking, Special Project Manager Ellsmore could bring up that usage chart. But that will still be maintained as a public parking lot. It's not a part of this development.
Great. I think there was some confusion about it because people saw two separate buildings or the two buildings connected by that walkway. Some folks thought maybe we were going to that lot. So that is not part of the proposed.
It is not. And on that list right there, that would be the, what'd you call that? Special Project Manager Ellsmore. Is that even on there?
I didn't include the 3rd and G lot. There is available spaces there, but I didn't include any lots that have potential for future housing. So I left those lots out for vacancy purposes.
Well, I want to be clear that in our current inventory of properties to be used in the housing element, that is not in the current inventory. And it's definitely not a part of this project.
Thank you for clarifying. That's my mistake. That would add some additional spaces there. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councilmember Burgell. And I could barely see that yellow, so you may have to occasionally just speak up.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm just curious, a couple of things regarding, excuse me, the parking situation. So is it my understanding correct that the property at G, the old City Hall parking lot, is that leasable property, or is that going to be open to the public? So is that going to be leasable for businesses, or is that going to be for just people down in Old Town?
So currently right now we do lease some spots there. We do offer leases to businesses for some of our lots, and that still would be available. Right now we haven't heard anything. We have reached out to property owners to see if they're interested, and we've got not a response where they wanted to do that. But yes, we do lease spots in our public parking lots to businesses. But
go ahead. I'm sorry.
As of right now, there's just, I believe, 10 in that lot right now, and I think there's 40 spots in that lot, but there's 10 currently being leased. They're being paid for, but they're not under an actual lease.
And then so I just heard you say, and just correct me if I'm wrong, so are there leasable spaces for the businesses in all of the parking lots that are available, or just that one for like employees, etc.?
Well, I know we do it. I don't know. I think all is something I couldn't answer. Scott, can you?
Yes, I can jump in there. So there's a few permits in that lot for Redwood RCRC, which was when the hotel was reconfigured some years ago. So we're currently working on a parking study, and one of the things we're looking at is to create a permit system we get a lot of feedback from mainly we have a residential permit program that allows folks that live down there to park in parking lots for longer duration of time. We receive a lot of feedback from business owners or employees for similar types of requests. And so as part of our parking study now, we're looking at a permit system that would allow, it would create permits for folks that are employees or business owners to get them into either lots or maybe some on-street areas to alleviate some of that need right now because of all the 2-hour parking. So it's done in other cities, and I think it's something that we can look at pretty realistically as part of our current upgrades to the parking.
Great. And then the shuttle service, so that'll be something that is free to the public. So like if you worked in Old Town and you couldn't find a place to park, you could park at the Adorney potentially and take the shuttle free to work. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It would be, a route that covers all of downtown. So you could hail it, you could jump in there, you could park down on one side and ride to the other side. So yeah, all of those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Bauer.
I don't know who can answer this, but it's pretty straightforward. So I think there was 4 units for nurses, doctors, 15 for students or what have you. That's locked in stone, right? And I ask that because I know a lot of nurses and doctors, travelers that come through town have a hard time finding a place. So I just want to make sure that that's something we're guaranteeing.
I wouldn't say it's locked in stone. We do have the ability for more density here. If there's interested parties, we've been doing this, since November. We've been doing it for a long time, and we've been trying to reach out to those people to try and partner with them. And this is as far as we've gotten. Garrett, do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, I'll only add that our conversations with area employers like Open Door it's all been very well received. It's not locked in stone, but we do recognize they'd be a benefit to the project.
Thank you.
Councilmember Arroyo.
So I do recognize that this project is being spearheaded by the city and not by Humboldt Transit Authority, but I would like to ask if someone could speak to, and I know we have Greg Pratt here from HTA, so please feel free to speak to this if you'd like, or any of our existing presenters. What's the ridership that we're really looking at that location? I mean, how many people would this serve as far as riders of transit and other bus routes?
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Greg Pratt. I'm the general manager at Humboldt Transit, and just to let people know that, we were like everyone else hit pretty hard with the pandemic. We were down 75% when it first happened. Latest stats were now at 45% of where it happened. So we're steadily climbing. Last calendar year, we carried 300,000 passengers.
Greg, can I just ask, is your microphone on? There's a little green light right in front of it.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
I was wondering, and then Councilmember Arroyo asked.
Just to answer that question, out of those 300,000 passengers, approximately 60,000 caught the bus there at 3rd and H. So that's why we keyed on that location.
So out of 300,000 during the pandemic, 60,000 were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then could you also just touch on what other riders would be able to use it? I know there's potentially some opportunity to serve riders of other transit and other operators routes.
So we've been working with Del Norte, Trinity counties to bring folks from there into Humboldt, transfer in there at the center. We've also been working with Mendocino and to provide seamless connection to the SMART train, also with Lake County to transfer folks so we can get to Calistoga and Napa and beyond. And so, that is in place. And then also Greyhound Amtrak would be utilizing that site.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Castellano.
Does anyone know if there's been any outreach to Redwood Coast Regional Center as a potential partner in this? They have a fairly large office there in downtown that serves a number of people who experience disabilities, and then also there's several businesses that also serve members of that population who also have very unique transit needs. So I could just imagine that could be a potential ally and partner. The people who live and work and in Old Town and Downtown who I've talked with in that community have been very supportive of this project.
That's definitely something that we can do. Like we said, this is not set in stone. And so there is on the Gantt chart that Garrett provided, there's public meetings that are going to be happening, and we will make sure that we reach out to, just like for this, we'll notice it similar to how we notice this meeting.
All right, any more questions from council? I don't see any. Okay, so we are going to open it up for public comment. And a reminder that tonight the only comments are specifically about the project that we're talking about. If you would like to make a comment, just step up to the microphone.
Mayor, if we could ask those in the room to line up on either side, and that will make things go a little more efficiently, and then we'll take the callers on the Zoom call.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tom Wheeler, and I'm a Eureka resident. I feel like I need to start by speaking from the heart, and I'm so excited. That was a wonderful presentation there. It is a very well thought out plan, and I strongly support the proposed development. There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. So I strongly support the proposed development. It's going to add much needed housing. It's going to improve transit choices in our community and help to create a more vibrant downtown.
I want to touch briefly on why the city needs to step in and help housing development in Eureka. So between 2010 and 2018, only 124 net housing units were created in our city. 70 of these were through 2 large affordable housing development projects. So the city, and I'm going to quote its housing element here, has found that we are experiencing a shortage of housing at all income levels. This is driving housing insecurity, which drives our high ACEs scores. It also is a contributing factor to our homeless population here in the city. With few vacant parcels available for development, we are rightly looking at creative solutions to meet this housing need, and I think that this project is a wonderful addition. Again, I strongly support the development and encourage the city to go even bigger. I think that this is a prime spot to add even more density. So let's add more housing units, if possible, to this development. Thank you so much, and I urge you to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, council members. My name is Colin Fisk. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, CRTP. We have 600 plus members and supporters, many of them here in Eureka. And first of all, I want to thank the city and HTA for putting forward a project that combines a much needed downtown transit center with much needed housing and other amenities. The city has needed a downtown transit hub for a long time, both to help coordinate all of the Redwood transit system, Eureka transit system, and longer distance regional bus routes, and to provide a convenient, comfortable, and centrally located environment for people waiting for buses and transferring between buses and between modes. The project, as you heard, also includes lots of other amenities which are critical for a modern multimodal transit center, including car share and bike share hubs, secure bike parking areas, and car rental facilities, all of which will allow last mile access to and from transit without the need for a personal vehicle and therefore without the need for parking. To top it all off, the plan includes an increase in transit service in the form of express routes to Cal Poly Humboldt and major investments in zero emission buses and green building technologies and techniques. The project will deliver literal busloads of people to the doorsteps of downtown businesses using safe and healthy low carbon transportation. The second major component of the project, as you heard, is housing on the upper stories, and it's no secret that we're in a housing crisis, and downtown Eureka is an ideal place to put it. It's walkable, obviously it has good transit access, it's near a lot of jobs, services, and retail. Including housing in the project is a no-brainer, and we strongly support it. However, we also would strongly encourage the council to add additional housing to the proposal by increasing the building heights up to a minimum of 5 stories so that we can really maximize the housing production in that area. And we're also very pleased to hear the staff's amendments to the resolution ensuring that we meet affordability requirements. So obviously, CRTP strongly supports this project and the partnership between the city and HTA. We think this is a win-win-win for housing, the environment, and economic development. And we encourage the council to pass the resolution tonight after, as I said, adding something to increase the density of the residential units on top of this transit center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello.
You
Do
can
I
pull
adjust?
that down. Yeah.
Haven't been here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jenna Katzos.
Is the light green?
There we go.
Oh. Don't
Hi.
turn on. So just is it for everybody else, don't touch that when you leave, and hopefully it'll stay on.
No one can be taller than me. My name is Jenna Katzos, and I am a Eureka resident and business owner. And I am here tonight to share my support for this development. I'm also really impressed with the amount of work that's already gone into this. It was a really great presentation. So Eureka needs housing, and there's really no way that you can disagree with that statement. Projects like this are the best way to add housing to our city, tied to transit, close to services, and through infill development. I live near downtown, and I have an office in Old Town. And I visit this area on a daily basis, and I never have trouble finding parking. It was nice to see the study that supported that fact, and I'm also really excited about the shuttle. I think that's a really creative solution. We need to prioritize housing in our community, and housing in downtown corridors like this makes the most sense. I would also like to say that I support a denser development, so adding a couple of stories, and I hope that you consider that tonight with this proposal. I want to live in a city that is vibrant and alive, and projects like this are the right direction for Eureka. Thanks.
Thank you. Just make sure that little green light on the microphone's on.
We're good. So hello, my name is Katie Gurin. I'm an engineering consultant living less than a mile from the proposed project on H Street in Eureka, and I'm here to offer my strong support for this project. The Earth Center is exactly the kind of transit-oriented development that our community needs to hit regional climate targets and shift our transportation system toward healthier, more sustainable, active, and public transit modes. I think this project will add life and vitality to Eureka's downtown as well as to my neighborhood on the H Street corridor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We'll try this. How's that?
Sounds good.
Hi there. I'm Maggie Kraft, and I'm the Executive Director of the Area 1 Agency on Aging. And my predecessors here who spoke, I'm not going to repeat anything they said. I agree totally with what they're saying. And once you've taken up a parking lot to do this, go as high as makes sense, because it's only one parking lot and you've got a lot of space above you. I just want to make sure that you remember, in terms of the transportation piece, the shuttle, that you make it user access friendly. If people are going to be parking further away, they need to be able to get on and off the shuttle without too many problems, unless you're going to really create a lot more disabled parking around, which then often sits empty and may not be the best use of it. So just something to consider. And, you know, transportation and housing are two things that those of us who are housed and those of us who have cars don't really think about the same way that people who are threatened by losing their housing or have already lost their housing or can't afford the housing we have here. So I do think this is really important to hear from those people as well. And I always feel like those of us who are housed shouldn't have as much to say about building housing as those people who need housing. And so I'm really delighted that the city is looking at this very, very unique and thoughtful process, and I'm very grateful for it. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Griffith. I am here actually wearing 3 hats tonight, and every single one of them is supportive of this project, and thank you for bringing it forward. The first is as the Executive Director of the North Coast Environmental Center, and we recognize that we're in a climate crisis and that we're in a housing crisis, and I think that Councilmember Bauer said it recently that infrastructure is climate policy. And so this is really the way that the right step forward in producing the housing that we need. Not only is it close to services to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and providing transit. And I'm super excited about the car share, which is something I've been talking to people recently about how we need that. But it also makes it so we don't have to move into forests or agricultural lands to build housing. So this is a great step in that direction. I think that, you know, as a few other folks have mentioned, we could even go denser and add a couple of stories to that. The second hat is as a Eureka resident who used to live in Old Town, and walking around Old Town at night, I would often be the only person out there. And so anything that would bring more vibrancy to the community and down there actually makes it safer. So I'm really excited about that. And also they're just a really attractive, I mean, the fact that this like matches with the rest of the aesthetic and the living roof. I mean, as somebody who has looked for housing in this area and had a really hard time finding affordable housing that is nice looking and safe, I really value that you're going this direction. My third hat is as co-owner of a small business. And unfortunately, my business partner and sister couldn't be here tonight because she's working. But we were talking recently about how we've actually got a few customers because we're close to a bus stop. Because people have time to wait, they walk around, they're intrigued, and they come in. And so to I think this could really be a benefit to the area, just having more people milling around the area and shopping. So thank you. And I think that covered it all. The shuttle service is a really interesting idea too. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope you all can hear me through this mask. If not, I'd be happy to remove it.
We could hear you.
There are, and I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm the only one that actually is taking the mask mandate seriously and wearing an official plague mask instead of a useless scrap of paper or cloth. That being said, I see so much wrong with this project, I don't even know where to begin. 20 years ago, Kurt Kramer tore down a quarter of a city block on 5th and F to provide the off-street parking that was required for his professional building renovation. He also had to do an incredible amount of work on 3rd and H, I believe it was, 2nd and H, to do the same thing, provide off-street parking. And here we are 20 years later with the city taking 75 badly needed parking spaces out of existence to provide 31 residential units and some shops at a cost of $30 million. That breaks down to over $600,000 per unit for these little apartments. There are, it's just, to me, I'm just not seeing the financial sense in it. I don't see the need for it. I'm sure that there are at least 31 units available in the downtown, Old Town area. Some of them probably aren't up to snuff, but I'll bet you if you gave those landlords $600,000, they could bring them right up to nifty, peachy keen, and marble countertops, the whole works. $8 million for a glorified bus stop and some shiny new buses. There's already a bus stop there. It's not like it's going to be bringing anybody new into the downtown area. It's not going to be changing anything other than putting a bunch of lipstick on a pig. All right? It's not a wise use of anybody's money, especially ours, because that's what it all is taxpayer money. Thank you.
No clapping, please. Okay, rules of decorum say no clapping, no making any. Okay, Chief Stevens, I'm sorry. And go ahead, Mr.
Howdy. Hi, my name is James Clore. I'm just a Eureka resident. I think there's some interesting things that were said in the last one. I wonder if Kurt Kramer would have built that parking lot if he didn't have to. I wonder if the old building code required that to do that renovation he had to add those 20 parking spots. I wonder. We've changed the building code. Isn't that groovy that we've updated our code from something that was written in the 50s and was taken off the shelf to something that's new and something that meets the community that we have now? I wonder if we would have saved Kurt Kramer a bunch of money 20 years ago if he didn't have to develop those parking lots. I saw the Lost Coast Outpost article for this concept, and I thought this was the coolest thing I've seen Eureka do in a long time, and I pay attention to Eureka pretty well. I think there's some really psychologically wonderful things that come with new construction. Like I said, I'm a Eureka resident, but I go to Arcata sometimes, and the new Danco building for affordable housing that's on like 9th and K Street or something, right near the co-op, that's a beautiful building. And when you drive in Arcata and you see the new construction and the investments that they're making in the city, it makes you feel good about that city. And I feel like if people came to Eureka and they saw these new buildings, they would know that new things are happening here and that we're trying to invest in Eureka. I didn't know the dollar figure until tonight, but $30 million, that's huge. That's a $30 million investment in Eureka, right? 23 of that is for housing. It's not like that money's just going down a drain. That's going to be $30 million that's spent on local contractors. That's going to be $30 million that's spent hiring electricians to wire the building. That's going to be $30 million that's spent with local construction companies, with local businesses. The materials are probably, some of them are going to come out of the area, but most of them are going to come from here, right? So if we're going to spend $30 million on something, let's spend it on something as cool as a concept of what we just saw. I would love to be able to jump on a free shuttle for like 2 blocks because I'm lazy. Like, that sounds kind of neat. That sounds kind of fun. I would love to park at a parking lot that's pretty close, but maybe not exactly where I need to be, and to be able to jump on a shuttle. That's a wild idea. I just love the fact that we're trying to invest in Eureka and make this place better and build a beautiful building. Like, that thing looked cool. And I'm just excited about that. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Simmons, and I'm here representing the Redwood Coalition for Climate and Environmental Responsibility, or ROCKR. We would like to wholeheartedly endorse the Earth Center. The proposed Earth Center combines a much-needed downtown transit center with housing. The climate crisis is real and upon us. Tackling it means changing our built environment to encourage low-carbon lifestyles. Here in Humboldt, the majority of our carbon emissions come from transportation. Single-family segregated suburbs encourage people to own personal vehicles in order to get to and from work and other activities. We've built an environment that requires a car to live, and then wonder why we are having difficulty reducing our emissions. The Earth Center is an important step towards making Eureka and Humboldt County more hospitable to climate-friendly living. Building more housing downtown, close to jobs, services, and retail will allow Eureka to lower emissions by driving less and using transit and walking more. Students will be able to take a bus directly to Cal Poly. Traveling nurses and doctors who don't own a car will have the option of coming to Humboldt. People who can't drive because they experience a disability will have a place that they can live. All of these people deserve a home in Eureka that is built for them. Our one critique of this project is that it does not contain enough housing units. We are in the midst of a housing affordability crisis driven by our historic underinvestment in dense housing. Adding more units would allow more people to live in the same amount of space and decrease the average cost of the units. This will help the city meet its affordable housing targets and bring down the cost of rent for everyone. It will also ensure that there is a population of people who live next to the transit center, helping it get on its feet. Solving the climate crisis will require actually changing our behavior and how our cities are designed. This project is a welcome opportunity to move in that direction. And if you'd like to know more, you can visit us at rocker.com, RCCER, and you can sign our petition to build more buildings like this in Humboldt County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sebastian Elwright with Humboldt Bay Provisions, 2nd G, Old Town Eureka. I'm not in favor of this project as it's proposed. I'm not very certain that not having the parking survey data for the lots in question in front of us tonight was a good way to present that, because we might find that the percentages were much higher for those lots, but we don't know because it wasn't set right there in front of us tonight. So a little more research on my part would be good. I would like to also say that with all the concerns about climate change and some of those other things that a lot of people have mentioned, why not make a parking garage underneath with that nice arc support structure on those pillars? And since we know sea level rise is a big concern, and we're hoping that this building's going to be here for 50 to 100 years, like the rest of the buildings in Old Town Eureka, you might consider that as another option. And the money being spent is a little bit grandiose, maybe, from the public dole, but it sounds like a good idea, and it might work out well. But I think the process that you guys took on from the very beginning was somewhat flawed, just because of the parking district assessment that was done in the past, and then designating these areas as surplus when there was at one point, and still seems to be, a concern about the designation as a parking lot for Old Town and the business district in Old Town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. We good?
Yep.
I'm Beth Burks. I'm the executive director of the Humboldt County Association of Governments. And we did submit a letter on this project, so I'm not going to repeat everything that was in that, but I did want to reiterate just a couple of things. And that is that in January, the HCOG board voted unanimously to join HTA as a project partner in their grant application for the Intermodal Center. The Intermodal Center, establishing that in Eureka, is a key to the Public Transportation Action Plan, which is part of our recently adopted Regional Transportation Plan. The proposed project is precisely the type of development that HCOG supports to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, lower vehicle miles traveled, and create vibrant neighborhoods. At HCOG, we have spent a whole lot of time over the last couple of years developing safe and sustainable transportation targets and working on policies to support them. We all want better outcomes for our residents in terms of safety and health, and we want to be part of the climate solution. But if we want to achieve these targets and realize the multiple benefits that come with achieving them, we need these types of projects to be approved, because we can't do it with policies alone. So I think in addition, this project will result in comprehensive modernization of the regional transit system, expansion of transit, as well as, create the housing that we know we need. And so I also know that the project team is really committed to making this a point of pride for Eureka and our region. So I do want to say, just consistent with the HCOG board resolution, that I would urge you to support this project.
Thank you.
This is Genevieve. Well,
Pull that
Wilson,
down.
pull it down. I don't want to touch anything and make it mess it up. Okay. The reason a beautiful project is look nice. It looks like euphoria, okay? And I used to even comment that we should have a cruise ship. We stop by here, the people can visit the old town. But we have to solve the homeless problem too. But homeless problem, if you're low-income housing around the area, they can steal your wallet and run and hide. Okay, I don't know what project. That's the only thing I'm concerned. Right? Beautiful, euphoria is a good place. But you need to worry about if somebody, low-income housing people, to steal you. I try to help homeless people. I got it. But we need to start helping those people to help themselves. And then eventually you feed them. Right now we have a crack pipe project. You give them free needle, free crack pipe, you encourage the problem. Okay, that's not the problem. My point, another one thing is, luckily I wear this, I can talk better. And you have to raise your voice. International, you talk without your mask on. That's a law. That's your freedom to speak, to express your facial expression. Another thing too, human are human. You have expression.
Are you done speaking on this particular item?
I'm speaking of item you just talked about.
You're speaking about the housing?
Yeah, I did. I said housing, you got to be careful. If you're low-income housing, people stole somebody's wallet, they're hiding. Okay, that's what I just say. Euphoria, but we have to have a potential safety problem over there. And we parking lot, people can park and go. Another thing is, you just mentioned that we're not supposed to clap or whatever. A human being should have expressed your expression. That's why you're human. You're free expression. People. And you are all servant for the people. You need to respect the people expression. By the way, I'm lucky I can talk because international, you talk without a mask on, okay? That's all I can say. This thing is going off February 15th because at that time, Omicron virus are dead. Thank you.
Okay, I will make a note that the reason we don't applaud is because we want people to be able to speak freely. That is a respectful way. That is the way we behave in meetings like this. So we are welcome to stand up and speak and say your piece. Just get in line and we will listen to you. Come on up.
Hello. So my name is Libby Eastheim, and I was wondering, do I just give my opinion, my comment, or can I ask a question?
We don't really answer questions, but if you ask a question, then we might ask that afterwards. Okay. Yeah.
So I believe there's 304 units that we need to do here in Eureka, based on the state's evaluation of our population between the public and the private sector. Has the private sector done any of those? Do we have any numbers on that, or is it just 100% going to fall on the city?
So we'll talk about that then when it comes back to council.
Okay, deal. So I can't say I'm for or against this. I wholeheartedly believe you guys have made up your minds and are going to do what you're going to do. So that's cool with me. But I was wondering on the comment on the significant street parking and that these parking lots are only half full. I do all of my errands walking, and I've never seen sufficient parking anywhere in the city. So I don't think that's entirely real true on that. And if children are going to be living in these, I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
Well, we talked about the kind of housing. We'll talk about that when we come back to council.
Okay, well then if there were going to be kids living in this, I would think that we have a little more leeway with room than, say, some of the other cities that are having to do this. That we don't necessarily have to stick children directly on, even though we call it 4th and 5th Street, it's still considered a state highway. So I guess that's about it. So I don't know. It kind of looks cool, but we'll see what happens with it. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Wilson. I noticed you had your fuel. I noticed you had
Is the green light on?
Oh, okay. I don't hear too well sometimes. I notice you have your fuel cells that you're using as a source of your battery power. I did my first fuel cell 67 years ago, and one of the things you notice is that you have to have some source of hydrogen. I assume they're using oxygen from the air, not LOX like you use on your missiles and stuff like that. But the thing is, you have to consider the cost and the efficiency of the device that you're using. In other words, fuel cells require hydrogen. Who creates the hydrogen? And how much does that cost? Where does that come from? Is that creating all these pollutants that you don't want? So I think that should be considered in the overall scheme of things there. You have large buses. Now, you don't get too much ridership. Large buses sometimes are more or less efficient than cars because they have such a big such a big device, and they carry so few people for the amount of pollutants that they create. So you could consider using smaller buses so that you don't have that. To increase the efficiency, reduce the amount of pollutants that you create. You're thinking in terms of housing. Now the state is working against you. All the government, federal government works against you too, because the thing is you create the system where the squatters have superior rights to the landlords. So therefore they don't want to rent to anybody. So there's no alternative source of housing because the government is making this situation where you don't want to rent. Why rent when it takes you 2 years to get rid of somebody and it costs you $18,000? So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Nicholas Cole, business owner, Old Town Eureka. I prepared a statement. I'm going to throw it away because as I'm listening to what's happening here, and I'm hearing the need for housing, which I've spoken to this board about before, and I agree. We do need housing, but I do have concerns. I've been a stakeholder in Old Town for 20 years. I've seen the impacts of loss of parking. I've seen the impacts of COVID. I'm trying to recover my business, and I've had to put even the name recover, even the word recover, I've had to throw away because I have to rebuild it. Recovery is a passive thing. I have to actively rebuild my business now. So what I want to ask this council, I understand and appreciate the need for housing. But I want to ask this council to acknowledge the impact of the lost parking and recognize what that means to the small businesses of Old Town. Because those are people, too, who are contributing and supporting this community. Had there been any amount of parking consideration in this proposal, I would have had a very different point of view. But it was completely removed as a factor. And so I really ask you, think about that. Think about how much maybe you can replace. There are undeveloped plots in Old Town. There's land that is not being used. Land that is currently being used is now in this plan. Could it work? Could. I don't get to see that. I don't get to know that. But I know the impact from construction and the impact from lost parking will impact my business. And I want you to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bill McCauley. I'm a Eureka citizen and a business owner, and our business is located immediately adjacent to the 3rd and G parking lot that you are proposing to develop on. I've heard from council members that they all support business and that you want to see business succeed. You're making it very difficult for businesses to be able to succeed, and I'll try to give you a little color on that. Our employees live all over we have employees who come from McKinleyville, and we have employees who come from Fortuna. We actually have one who comes from Shively. They come from all over, and they're going to have to park. And when you get here and it's in the rain and you've come from Shively, you don't particularly want to go to park in the Adorney and take a shuttle. And so that to me is concerning. What concerns me more, because we'll find a way to deal, if we can, with our employees' ability to park, is our customers. Our customers are we're a CPA firm. Our customers skew older. I've heard comments about taking care of people who are older. Well, our clients are older, and they can't walk blocks. They can't walk a block and a half, take a shuttle, and try to get a block from us if they're 85 years old and they don't get around very well. We're going to have a problem being able to serve those clients in a way that they're accustomed, because there's not going to be on-street parking. Let's be realistic. I saw the drawing, which is very pretty, that was furnished the other day, and there's going to be the on-street parking is going to be reduced too, because you got big carve-outs for bus stops. Another concern we have is that you're going to have increased traffic on the alley behind us in Lost Coast Brewery, and that's 6 feet from our front door. The reason we use that as a front door, most people would think it would be a side door, is because we don't want our clients getting in and out of cars on 4th Street. It's not safe. But G Street works for us. But that's what's going to happen, is that's going to be unavailable to our clients, because people are going to be parking there, because you're taking away 70 plus parking spots and you're adding parking demand. And everybody I talk to tells me that who's in that business, that you're going to be in a position where that demand is going to be more than 1.5 cars per unit. So you add, and you got density of up to four tenants in some of them. It's going to be a problem. You're creating a problem, and we weren't engaged in the dialogue. We found out about it late, and we didn't have a chance really to participate in it. And you talk about engaging stakeholders, you didn't engage us. Shame.
Cornelius Lowenstein, somebody who comes frequently to City Council. Well, City Council has a proven track record of screwing things up. If you look at the current shape and state of Old and Downtown, you know it's earth-shattering. The depleted, depressed zombie wasteland that's spiraling out of control every other day, even worse. We got the needle problem, now we're going to get the crack pipe problem. We also have a feces problem, and we have a problem of a dwindling, faltering tourism industry. To think that a transit hub, with a price tag of $30 million, transit hub and 31 units would revive Old Town, we'll be on the hook with $30-some million for eternity to come. And what you do, a transit hub historically draws questionable characters. If you travel all over Europe, what congregates at transit hubs are the, drinkers, the winos, the bums, and the hoodlums. And so if things go haywire, and south from there, with a council that has made plenty of, bad decisions in the last couple of years, we don't know what we get ourselves into, but we will have it on our doorsteps in the heart of Eureka for the next 50 to 70 years. Yeah, and we'll be liable for the money you spend, but we'll also have to deal with the impact that this construction might have on an already struggling area that deals with a fallout of the opioid epidemic. We have homeless people rummaging the streets. The alleyways look terrible. There's nothing that would attract people to Eureka in its current state. So make Eureka safe again, clean up Eureka, be fiscal responsible, and be good stewards of us, your constituents. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Rick Littlefield. I'm property owner at 3rd and H Street, immediately across the street from the proposed project. There's so many things I like about this project. I like the sustainability of it, the infill, I like the way that transportation would be reorganized somewhat, but to try and I have some problems with this, to be honest. To take out one of the primary parking lots in the heart of the downtown Old Town area is very concerning. I've been in business for 40 years in Eureka, about half of it in the downtown area. Back in the day, the Parking Commission frequently received complaints about parking and was often talking about parking garages and other ways to mitigate that. They used to point the finger at the county because the county had all these employees and didn't do anything to provide parking. I don't know how many parking spaces have been removed in this surplus property scenario, but this one has 78 parking spaces, does it? And none of those are going to be mitigated in any way. And as somebody mentioned, some of the on-street parking there will also be taken out because of the way the configuration is for that. So I do like this project, but I don't like it here. And as a property owner, I heard about this a week ago. I was out of town and I came back and I got this thing, and they've got a beautiful picture of a well-formed, fully planned out project, and I'm hearing about it a week ahead. And now's my chance to say something. So I'd like to ask you to slow this process down, continue this, don't vote on this tonight, give us a chance to take a look at it and understand it a little bit better. The idea of the shuttle bus going around is something new I hadn't even thought of. Maybe that's a good idea. Frankly, I think people aren't likely to use it, but I'm no parking expert. I think it's a little bit disingenuous that they did this spreadsheet about all the parking lots and how much they get used, except this one wasn't on there. And my guess is that it was highly used. I don't know if that's why it wasn't on there or if it was just not on there for some other reason. Anyway, I'll ask you to continue this and give some of the actual stakeholders, the people that have been in business there for many years, a chance to digest this and make a reasoned evaluation of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think it'll be unfair to say that this isn't a good idea. It's not a good thing, but it is one of the things that we do need is more housing. It's an important thing that we do need. And me personally, I deal with trying to find affordable housing within the area. But I do not believe this is like the right place for it. And I would like to see more mock-ups for other places that it could be, because there could be, like other people saying, it's taking away from parking lot and right there. And I'm a manager at Las Cosas Brewery, and it's directly affecting us. It's directly right behind us, and just the parking lot, just like we've seen those numbers as well. I don't think those numbers will reflect the numbers that we would see during the summer months when it's the most busiest, because we have constantly turning over tables and stuff. So it's one thing I wanted to say. And also I kind of wanted to see the hours for the shuttles, the hours of how long the shuttles will be running. And then also we have a lot of people that are on lunch break and come in real quick. And with this right there, that option of just coming in real quick and be trying to find a parking lot instead of having to park far away kind of takes that option away from us. And it's very hard. And it'll affect us very, very hard. And like a lot of the other people around this area were saying, is that it will affect us because we're trying to rebuild this business. We were closed for over a year and a half, and we're struggling to get back open. And the fact that we were able to get back open, this is just another thing that's going to set us back. And it's something we can think about if we can think about other areas or other things that we can do to help with this problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joyce Hill. I'm the general manager of Las Cosas Brewery for 17 years. So I think I have a really good idea on how much that parking lot means to Old Town. On a Friday and Saturday night during the summer, that place is packed. There isn't a parking spot. I have employees calling me up trying to get to work saying they're going to be late because they can't find parking. Now, this was true 2 years ago before COVID hit. It's hit Old Town really hard, and we're trying to come back. It's been pretty tough. 90%, we have 2 doors, one on 4th and one on 3rd. The one on 3rd is our main entrance. 90% of our clients come through the back door because that's where the parking is. On 3rd Street, you know, what we get is usually walk in from local businesses. If you go ahead and put this project there, it will close our doors. There will be no parking. I just really think that you need to think about this. It's going to put people out of work, and Lost Coast Brewery's been in business now for 32 years, so I believe that it demands a little consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Groom, I'm the owner of the Lost Coast Brewery. And I was going to talk about something I read in Lost Coast Outpost that said they're going to have a food truck hub. That wasn't mentioned here tonight. We went through this before a few years ago when the city wanted to set up something to encourage food trucks. And I hope that that's not part of this project. That said, I think this project is great. I think we need something like this. And like everybody else that just talked, not there. That is the busiest parking lot in the city of Eureka, and you're taking it away. We alone have 50 employees, and, you know, not all at one time, but they need to find parking. Our customers need to find parking. You know, your diagram didn't include that parking lot, but the ones way down on C and L, there's no businesses down there, and they were empty. Why don't we look at those properties to put something like this? That would bring life to another part of Eureka that has no life. We have a lot of life right where we are with Old Town and all the restaurants around there. So you're coming into the middle of the busiest part of town and gutting our parking. Why? I mean, it doesn't have to be there, and there's just better places for it. It's a wonderful project, but let's think about the businesses that are down there paying the taxes and putting bread on people's tables. And we need a little consideration also. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Hello, my name is Mur. I'm a Eureka resident and small business owner. I wanted to show my support for the Earth Center. I get excited about any opportunity to have more housing, especially in Old Town. I especially appreciate the transit aspect of it, getting shuttles to Eureka. I rode the bus from Hawthorne to HSU as a student twice a day, 4 days a week. And every time I ended up in Old Town, I'd end up spending more money than I planned in one of our small business centers. We have a lot of people who would use transportation if it was better. I heard that from so many people, so many students. It does take 45 minutes to get to HSU, and if you miss the lunch bus, you end up doing a tour of Samoa. It's beautiful, but it's inconvenient. So whatever we can do to bolster our transit infrastructure, I think will really help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. I'm Kelly Martin been in Old Town for about 25 years. Well, don't know where to start. I have so much stuff to present, but one of the things I was heard about tonight is all this thing about the low-income housing or any housing, and I don't think there's anybody here that's be against low-income housing. Is there? Anybody? My mom grew up in the projects here in Eureka, so I have a little bit of past history. I didn't grow up there, but she did. This housing that's going to be down there is corporate housing. It's traveling nurses, traveling doctors. That's expensive housing. Only a small percentage is going to be for the students. a very small percentage. So this isn't about housing. This is a $30 million project. It's not about housing. So I don't know why we keep bringing it up. We need housing in Eureka, but this is not housing any of our residents here in Eureka. It's travelers. They're making anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a week. And they're going to have a tough time down there when they come out in the morning and they have the problems down there with the bus terminal. There's a bus terminal over in Arcata that I've been discussing with people all week, and it's a pretty dangerous place at night. There's tents, tarps. Ours isn't really that safe now. So that's a concern. I also have a concern about the medical underneath. Right next to my buildings, my skateboard shops, my tenants are pretty concerned about that because they have a medical bus that goes down to the soup kitchen, and it's pretty chaotic down there. So that's going to bring a whole new element up into Old Town that I don't think people are going to realize the element it's going to be. I agree with Barbara Groom. That's the main parking lot for Old Town. It feeds all of our storefronts down where we're at. And even the skateboard shop just got a shot in the arm recently when the brewery opened up. Their business went up drastically. So I think this needs to be rehashed and a lot more dialogue with the merchants and the property owners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm a property owner 1 block from the project, and I'm against the project. You know, looking at the picture and listening to it tonight, it's a wonderful project. It's beautiful. I mean, we should be so lucky. But having it on such a great parking lot that's so needed by everybody, it deserves to be somewhere, but not on our parking lots. Month after month, the public has attended city council meetings and expressed their disgust at what has happened to our city of Eureka. It has gone on deaf ears. We, the people, have voted for the people that we think will represent our ideas and prosperity. You are our representatives and have decided for us what you perceive to be best for us, which is your progressive agenda. It has not worked in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, or Seattle. We are a small seaport city of under 30,000 people. We have small town ideas. Any successful city as ours has a thriving business district, yet our representatives have failed to help them. The businesses have barely hung on due to the pandemic, and now you want to take their parking facilities. I guess you would say that is the final nail in their coffin. It is hard finding a place to park right now, let alone with these parking lots being developed. The citizens of Eureka support affordable housing for everyone. We want to see everyone have a place to call home and to be prosperous. However, building these units in downtown Eureka and Old Town is not a safe place for families, with both 4th and 5th Streets being the major thoroughfares through Eureka. When we had the prior 3 forums for these parking lots, we were told by Mr. Slattery that the city was going to develop these properties no matter what we said. And just recently, one of the council members said the same thing. It doesn't sound to me that our elected representatives care about us or our business district. They have their own agenda. I can tell you that you are poking a hornet's nest, and we are not going to roll over and let you hurt our city and businesses without a fight. Frankly, you have a lot of guts deciding that our business districts are expendable. And for those of you that are running for supervisor, are you going to put that on your resume?
Lucy Ramirez. I am a business owner in Old Town, and I thought I was late to the party, so I actually got a flyer handed to me last week, and today is the first time I've seen the presentation. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful building. I don't think anybody argues that we need housing. But as an employer and a business in Old Town, I feel a little ignored, actually, or forgotten about, maybe. My employees are fighting for parking every day. We have timers set for 2 hours because there's no parking. I'm surprised to not see the data on that parking lot in that graph also. I would like to see that. I feel like it's one of the only parking lots that you can park all day and have it be affordable for the employees. I've got 30 people coming down there every day, parking, working all day, working their ass off to make Old Town better. And I feel like it's hard to hear some of these meetings, and it's hard to hear. It's exciting to see something really great in a new building, and I would love to see more people be able to live in Old Town, but to ride a shuttle, I would never park at the Adorney Center and trust my car there all day. I would never get on a shuttle after hours. And I pride myself as being a pretty strong woman to be able to do something like that, but it is not safe to be down there. It's not safe to be getting on shuttles, in my opinion, and it would not be safe for my employees. So it would be nice to see what other options are. I don't know if I just missed that memo or missed the news on that, or what the other options are, and I apologize if I did miss all the meetings up to this that gave other options, but I would just highly recommend that you guys think about what you're doing. In our business, we have so many people that come in that wander in because they stopped because of Lost Coast Brewery. So I can only imagine how much traffic would not stop if they didn't have a place to park, which is what will happen if that parking lot goes away. There's just no parking down there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Connie Stewart. I'm the Executive Director of Initiatives for Cal Poly Humboldt. And I want to, of course, urge you to vote for the resolution tonight. I have to tell you, I've been coming to land use meetings for 30 years in Humboldt County, and this is the most thoughtful one I've been to. So I just want to applaud everybody for what they're bringing tonight and the spirit of what's being said. I do have to say that I do believe that if parking is really the only concern that is coming up here, that there are ways of managing the parking and to adding more on-street parking and some other stuff. And I would pledge Cal Poly Humboldt's help to help with any studies you need on how to do that. Cal Poly Humboldt wants to be Cal Poly Humboldt. We don't want to be Cal Poly Arcata. We really do want to invest in Eureka. We want to bring a lot of our economic development power to Eureka. And we are looking at this project as one way of doing it. And we hope to be bringing more projects to here. In addition, we even had a conversation yesterday with College of the Redwoods about how excited we are about the transit center and the technology options there. And we discussed programs, new curriculum programs, so that we could become part of the forefront of understanding how to deal with alternative transportation vehicles, which will help everyone, not just the bus systems, but everyone who is looking at alternative power. So I do think that there are things that we can do and still have this project. And I think this project is beautiful. We're very excited about it. We're very excited about the partnerships in it. I'm on the Open Door Clinic board as well, and I can tell you it's not just locums that need housing around here. We're constantly recruiting and constantly struggling to put our employees who want to stay in the community and work. Workforce housing is a major crisis for healthcare right now, and any units will help. You have to start somewhere. You can't just get every unit on every piece of property. So I just want to thank everyone who came out tonight. I want to just reiterate that we hope to be here in front of you with several projects that will bring students and our workforce and educational opportunities to the whole entire region so that we will truly be Cal Poly Humboldt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tori Starr. I'm the president of Open Door Community Health Centers. I think most folks are familiar with Open Door. We're the largest provider of primary care in both Humboldt and Del Norte County and employ over 700 people. And I would like to echo what Connie said about the process. I think having been engaged in this process for over a year now, I want to appreciate that there's so much complexity when you think about developing housing, and it's important to have all the voices be heard. And I appreciate the way that the council and the city has been engaging the stakeholders in that. And what I wanted to bring forward as a business owner, that the issue around housing, and I've been really encouraged to realize the recognition in our community now that without safe, affordable housing, the community doesn't work. And we've seen that certainly with our patient population who are houseless, that they're really unable to manage anything around their health care. And we've been focused in on that as an organization for quite a while and doing homeless services and trying to bring services to that particular population. And I never thought when I took over Open Door that I would suddenly have to become so engaged in housing. But what we're finding is the impact on our workforce is profound with the lack of affordable, safe housing. And I've already run into issues, for example, trying to recruit for our family medicine residency program, where we've had qualified candidates and they've been unable to come to Humboldt County because they couldn't find affordable housing. And these are people with well-paying jobs. So it's one thing to think about when we hear about traveling nurses and traveling physicians and other staff along those lines that are actually well compensated. But 70% of the folks that work for Open Door make less than $50,000 a year. And I'm extremely concerned about our staff that are actually in that income level, about where their housing security is going to come from. So I really appreciate that everyone is paying attention now to the need that we have for safe, affordable housing. I think this is a very thoughtful development. We're considering participating in it, partly because it will also generate affordable housing for those that aren't part of Open Door. So thank you for the opportunity to give our perspective on why we need affordable housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Jill Hansen Rice, and I'm a business owner in Old Town, and I am against the project as it is. I truly do like change. I always have. But $30 million is a huge price to pay for so few housing units if that's really what our goal is. When I truly feel, sorry, Greg, but the majority of it actually supports and helps HTA, Humboldt Transit Authority. Where I work, the courthouse and the county motor pool take up the majority of the parking in our area. Now the city is again taking more parking away. Business owners who are putting money into this community, they shouldn't even have to be here tonight. You, the city council, should automatically be looking out for them. I don't believe the parking stats that were provided is accurate either, like someone else said previously. I feel shuttles benefit the tourists, which are great, but not the locals who work in Old Town and the local merchants and the property owners. They need more input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Phil Holland. I'm a Eureka resident, downtown business owner, co-owner in a property across the alley. Somebody just tapped me on the shoulder and they're wondering, where's the brewery going to be able to put their dumpsters? Are they still going to be able to put them in the alley there, or is that going to be something else? I stand up as, representing about 10 of my partners and staff who, we're accountants. We don't want to get up and talk in front of people, so I drew the short straw. I've been around here long enough to know that when I was a kid, riding around the dailies trying to find parking, maybe people don't know where the Dailies building is, but that's where Redwood Capital Bank is now. And then the mall came in and all the mom and pop businesses got shut out and the big retailers came in at the mall and downtown went to blight. And, Dailies building sat there for years and years. And eventually somebody came along and bought that building. And what was the first thing they did? They took the footprint of that entire building and they leveled half of it and built parking. Now, maybe you think that's wrong. I guess Redwood Capital Bank doesn't know what they're talking about and what their customers want, because you don't agree. I'm afraid that it's going to turn back into that for a number of years. And again, if you like to see those metal accordion gates in front of all the businesses because they're closed, maybe that's what you want to see. You're going to see more of that, I'm afraid. Last meeting, one of the council members, had kind of a cute analogy of telling the downtown businesses they need to eat their vegetables. That's fine. I'd say eating your vegetables is sticking with the long-term retention of the boring parking that keeps those businesses alive. They know what they need. Fancy new buildings bought with grant money is more like eating your candy. It's a quick fix. We haven't been involved in this conversation. It's not free money just because it's a grant. It's taxpayer money. And you buy in with these out of the area people like Link and outside consultants. And to go back to my candy analogy, that's like the stranger pulling up in the van saying, "Want any candy?" And here's the city grabbing at it. Don't go along with it. Like I tell my kids, don't get in the van. You don't have to get in the van tonight. Give everybody more time to think about this, okay? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm representing Vern's Furniture. I have a lot of customers come in, say the reason I came here today is because I could find a parking spot. Let's face it, I've been here a long time. We all want housing. If you drive down Waterfront, there's all kinds of property down there. This isn't the right location. You're not talking about taking away a parking lot. You're talking about taking away my friends. Lost Coast, that's not just a business to me. They're my friends. All the businesses around, I'd like to go visit and see how they're doing. I'd like to see that they're busy. This isn't the way. We need to find property somewhere else. We need our friends to be good and viable. Vern's 25 employees are better. Lost Coast 50 employees are better. Abrax is across the street from me. I'm looking forward to having a new restaurant open up across the street. They used to be the Banana Hut. I went over and shook their hand and said, "I hate seeing empty buildings. I'm glad I got neighbors. Please find a different place for this and take care of my friends." Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I am a Eureka resident. I think my favorite part about Old Town and the reason I go down there is because of the vibrancy and the people on the street. It's not the parking lots. And often I'm walking and riding my bike down there because parking can be challenging, but I think I wouldn't go there if it wasn't for the tall buildings, the feeling of downtown character, and parking lots don't do that, but housing and people walking and using the streets because they live there does add to that. And so I don't have a lot to add in terms of, I think, a lot of what has been said for why we should build at that place and why the transit center is valuable has already been said. But yeah, I think downtown and Old Town would benefit from a building like this. I think really my only request would be to make it taller and add more housing units because we desperately need them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kendall Martin. My family owns multiple properties
that border this parking lot. And I feel that you as the city council failed. You failed to properly inform all of these owners of your plan, and you planned it really behind everyone's backs. Most of the people who actually own the businesses in Old Town are the ones you heard from tonight that are opposed. A lot of the people that are for it don't have any stakeholding in Old Town. They're on a bunch of nonprofit boards, and of course everyone wants affordable housing. No one's saying that we don't want affordable housing. This is just not the right place to put it. The business owners that are in Old Town every single day are the ones that are telling you that there is a parking problem. Yet you showed us data on a board that says there is no parking problem, but they're the ones that are down there every single day. And the parking lot in question was conveniently left out. So again, who knows Old Town better than the business owners that basically live there? How much housing is this actually creating? 31 units? How many are going to be for people that don't even live here? For nurses, doctors that are traveling? Everyone wants affordable housing, but that's not what it's going to be. Housing for people that don't live here isn't affordable housing. Is there not a better place for a transit hub than right in the middle of your main tourism part for Humboldt County?
Thank you. Okay, you guys, please.
Hi, my name is Sandra Gruby, and I wasn't really going to talk tonight because I just found out about this a few days ago. But I live in Eureka. I've lived here for 20 years since I retired. And I used to work as a city planner in the Bay Area. I worked in San Francisco and Alameda and Berkeley, 3 different jobs. In Berkeley, when I got there, we had a downtown office, and the customers complained that they couldn't come to the office because there was no parking. Well, a parking garage got built right next to our office building, our planning building. And the staff at the planning department were told we had to park 10 blocks away. We couldn't park on the street anymore because we needed to save the people, that we needed to save the parking spaces for the people who wanted to come and do business with us and with all the stores in Berkeley. Well, it didn't take long for me to figure out I could take the BART train to work. I didn't even need to drive anymore. Things grow. If you figure out one thing doesn't work, you can do another. Instead of building a high, tall building, everyone would like to see a tall building. Once in a while, we have beautiful views, beautiful buildings. So let's do it. A tall building for the cars, not for the people. And the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people criticize housing that's for people who are not well heeled, and they say it gets full of cockroaches and things like that. Well, when they built the building across kitty corner from the co-op in Eureka, they made a very nice building. But all of these new buildings have concrete landscaping around them, pebble stones and thorns coming up. That building has windows on the ground floor. They've already broken one of them. There's things you can do with architecture, landscaping, and preserving your old houses and restoring them so that people have places to live. No more car spaces, please.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take this last one in-house, and then we're going to go to Zoom. So if anybody else in here wants to speak, they'll wait till after the Zoom.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. That sure is a pretty building, but the picture you depicted of who's going to be walking around it is totally false, especially with the transit authority being there. I mean, I've seen the people that are hanging out in these transit stops. You should put a picture of drug addicts walking around with a sleeping bag over their head, needles laying on the ground, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's not safe for anybody. It's going to make it even unsafer for anybody that would live there. You need to, like I say, paint the real picture. Maybe you ought to clean up the town before you try to do that. And if you would take care and try to help these people that are addicted to drugs, get some kind of COVID relief or something for them, maybe try to help somebody out in the community to make it better and a safer place without needle litter, crime, and your car window being broke out wherever you park it. Thank you.
All right, so Assistant City Manager Powell, I'm going to have you call people in order.
All right. Hank?
Yes, I am here. I am a leader with True North Organizing Project, and I am also a Eureka resident. I live about a mile from Old Town, and I am supporting this project because I feel that the need for affordable housing is urgent. I deal from time to time with people who are lacking housing. It's a pretty sorry situation, and it doesn't look good for our city. I think that I would urge the council to move ahead with this project. I hope the issue with parking, which is a real one, can be resolved in a way that doesn't detract from the project itself and its goals. I would also say that I am in support of adding additional housing, adding additional floors to the proposed building so that we actually have a higher density of housing right downtown where we need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rima Greer.
Hello, Rima Greer. I'm a business owner in Old Town on 2nd Street. And I'd like to start by saying that I do support this project. I think it's a great project. I think the work you've done on it is beautiful, but the parking mitigation has to be dealt with. I'm in my little shop 4 to 5 to sometimes 6 days a week. And the number one thing people say when they walk in my door is, I couldn't find parking. It's a joke that we merchants on 2nd Street talk about, because that's the number one thing people say to us. I could not find parking. Followed immediately by, is there a restroom that will not scare me? Looking at the parking stats that you presented, I also question them, but I would also note that the parking lots on your chart at 3rd and E and 3rd between E and F were full all the time. There's no parking. My employees and I park blocks away so that we don't take up parking spots for our customers. And the other thing that I don't think too many people have mentioned is that the businesses all depend on tourism. And most tourists arrive in Eureka by car. They need to find a place to park so that they can walk through our beautiful Old Town and enjoy the carriage and the gazebo and all the little shops. If they can't park, they're not stopping. They're gonna move right along and they'll stop somewhere where they can park. I love the idea of the shuttle, but that doesn't replace parking. When I first heard about this, again, way too late, I assumed that there would be at least one level of parking in this business to replace the parking spots that you're planning to cover over. I would have assumed that you'd put a level of parking that would be that 75 spaces, and then another level of parking because we need more parking, but apparently not. And that really concerns me. I'm a few blocks away, so it's not going to as directly impact me as it will my friends who are closer to that lot. But the people who were parking there are going to spill over closer to me, and then my customers aren't going to be able to visit. It's not good. I love the project, but you have to mitigate the parking, and not a Dorney Center. And there better be great signage so that the tourists can go, oh, I can park here. And that shuttle better be awfully cute.
Thank
it
you.
better look
Thank
like
you
a
very much. That's your time. But
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Tess.
Hi, my name is Tess Yinger. I'm a local teacher and artist. I fully support this project, mostly for the reasons that other folks have mentioned. And I really hope that we choose to prioritize people and housing in our community over parking and dumpsters. Even though those things are important, I really think that this issue is not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So let's make sure that we make the right choice right now.
Thank you. Next caller, please, Pam.
Sorry.
No worries.
Next caller or next speaker is Erin Kelly. Trying to mute.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much for letting me speak on this. I completely support this project, and I actually agree with some people who have opposed the project, at least in its current location. Like, I totally agree that tourists need to find a place to park and then to wander around, and I think that this project is exactly that kind of proposal. It'll put more people downtown who are living there, who can go and frequent places like the Brewery. It'll make the downtown more attractive to people who want to come visit. It brings vibrancy. It's really good for business. And I work at Cal Poly Humboldt, and it's really important that we have housing for students. And I'm so happy that Connie Stewart came and spoke about that incredible need and the need for a shuttle to go between Eureka and Arcata, something that all our students would really benefit from. And I guess just as a final thought, there's no place that everybody will agree housing needs to go. Somewhere people will be impacted, but this is truly, in my opinion, going to benefit the businesses downtown, and I'd love to see more of it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Misael Ramos.
Good evening. My name is Misael. I'd like to state my complete support for the project with, a few comments. I think that developments, as was stated previously, similar to the Sorrel Place that is just about completed in Arcata, really are a model for the type of infill development that we need to be shooting for to place people near our businesses. And on the topic of businesses, where better to put a transit hub than right near the most business dense portion of our town, of which I'm a resident, since I didn't preface with that. Furthermore, as other people have stated, my main complaint about the residential aspects of the building itself is that it's not dense enough. It could be taller, perhaps. The units could be arranged in such a way, maybe, that there could be more units. That's one building can't solve the entire housing shortage, but I feel it should be denser. The shuttle bus, as the gentlelady that just spoke before me, or two before me said, should be something cute. It should be something like a trolley. That would be that would really contribute to the aesthetic of Old Town with a stylistic trolley. Yes, and I think that this type of development and placing a transit hub where proposed would do a lot to incentivize the mode shifts that are necessary to reduce our county's emissions, which come predominantly from transportation. And that's all.
Thank you.
Our next caller is Wendy Ring.
Hi. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I strongly support this project, and I keep hearing everybody say, oh, great project, but put it somewhere else. And I just want to remind everyone, we all know that whenever we try to build affordable housing, there's an outcry wherever it's going to go. And we're down to building on a city parking lot because it's city property and we can put it there. I would like to see increased density. Current estimates on housing units that are needed are really an underestimate. They don't take into account Cal Poly, the Trans-Pacific Data Center, climate and COVID refugees that we're already seeing. And I've run the numbers, and a shocking number of Humboldt households, about 14,000 of them currently spend more than half their income on housing right now. So when we think about increased competition for an already inadequate housing stock, we're looking at our longtime residents, our friends and our neighbors who are at risk of being displaced. And I'm sure we all know somebody who has had to move away because they couldn't afford housing. A transit hub belongs in the town center. I don't ride the bus, I confess. Much to Eureka, but if there was a multimodal center so that I could know that I could conveniently get from downtown to where I need to go, I would ride the bus. And we need people like me who have cars to ride the bus because we're in a climate crisis. We also know from experience across the country that when you put active transportation infrastructure, things that bring more walkers and cyclists into downtown areas, it increases revenue for local business, even when it's done at the expense of parking places. So I do hear the dismay of downtown merchants, and I hope we can figure out a way to make everybody happy rather than just having this project not happen. Thanks a lot for being able to share my thoughts.
Thank you.
Next caller is Mark Mueller.
Hello, I'm Mark Mueller. I live in Eureka and I work in Eureka, and I go down to Old Town quite a bit, usually on my bicycle or walking sometimes. And I really support this project. I think we need to shift our pressure to use other kinds of transportation besides cars. And I like the idea of mixed use of a building with housing and a transit center and other things. I think it's great. So anyhow, just saying I support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next caller is Heidi Benzanelli.
Hello, everybody. I want to say that can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I want to say that I'm in support of this project. Look at the improvement, the investment in the Carson block has had in the heart of Old Town. It's gorgeous and the whole area feels better. Some of the same people tonight who complain about needles and trash and dereliction and safety, the intentional investment and a persistent presence in Old Town, it's literally the solution. I absolutely love the idea of a transportation hub. When I travel, to be able to get off the plane or off a train and be able to shuttle to public transportation is perfect. With the investment our community has made in Fly Humboldt, considering a connection to Mendocino and to Samtrans, it opens up tourism and literally drives the economic engine of our Old Town business district. People getting off of public transportation, they're going to eat and shop in Old Town. People living in these apartments, and I do think there should be more, they're going to live and eat in Old Town. For goodness sake, where do you think they're going to drink beer? We recently went to Denver. Thank you, Fly Humboldt. It was fantastic. We rented a car, but parking was really challenging. Most of the people at the hotel didn't. And next time we go, we won't rent a car. It was cold, but we walked everywhere we went. We found restaurants, an open air market, and art galleries. If we were driving around looking for parking, we never would have found those spots. I really want to repeat that I wholeheartedly support this project. It has everything we need. It's got transportation, beds for heads, rides to work, increased opportunities for tourists, and access to increase and stabilize the workforce in our community. I feel like it's been thoroughly and thoughtfully planned, and you can count on me for support.
Thank you.
Eddie Morgan. Mr. Morgan, we can't hear you. We're still not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm Eddie Morgan. I'm in an odd position. I'm the executive director for Tri-County Independent Living, which believes in the philosophy of independent living for people with disabilities. So this project would help that group. I'm also a business owner of a business for the last 7 years in Old Town. Parking is a concern. I've been a veteran. My last deployment was in 2015 to the Middle East, and I've seen a lot of different countries and areas where this kind of progress does improve things. And I take my bicycle to work every day. So there's a lot of things that make me think of this project. I think the bottom line for me is that evidently parking is an issue. We need to look at other alternatives. Also, I think for the city and the county to lead by example and have the same challenges that businesses have. I know both in my nonprofit organization and in my business, everybody's complaining for parking. A lot of people in my nonprofit want to move out of Old Town because they get tickets when they park. So there's a lot of things that we need to do in the parking area. On the other hand, I know a lot of people that we serve will benefit from this. And so I think after doing all the calculus, I support this project, but we need to have more notification of the process, and we need to think of different solutions for the parking so we can do a better job. And I think the city and the county should also lead by example and have the same challenges with parking that other businesses have in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Samantha.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much for calling this meeting. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to be heard. My name is Samantha Sweeney. I've been a resident of Humboldt County for 19 years and worked at a number of businesses in Old Town for the last 15 years. For 3 of those years, I lived in Old Town. And for the last 6 years, I live about a half mile from the proposed site for the Earth Center. I'd like to say that I'm really excited about this project and the potential to bring new and renewed life into Old Town, for which I'm personally invested. I love Old Town. I spend a lot of time down there. I support the Earth Center because it hits on 2 of our most pressing issues, our climate crisis and our housing crisis. I sat in for nearly 3 hours of last week's city council meeting and listened to all of the public comment for and against the project. And I want to say that I understand as humans, it is difficult to look beyond our own circumstances. I mean, it's difficult to acknowledge the larger systemic context that operate around us. However, the more you start to look at the bigger picture, the clearer it becomes. I've been studying housing justice, food justice, and the forces that cause poverty for the last 5 years with my bachelor's and master's in social work, and any affordable housing is a step in the right direction. I'd like to request that low-income housing be considered, as many others have requested for more density. Low-income housing does have the greatest impact on our housing crisis to alleviate it. Of the 31 units that the project proposes, 15 units are allotted for student housing. And as far as who our community is and who deserves to be served, college students live in Eureka. College tuition pays the salaries of individuals who live in Eureka. College students work at your businesses for minimum wage. And I was one of those college kids working in restaurants in Old Town for years. I lived in Eureka and rode the bus to HSU for years, and it's actually not as scary or dangerous as people think. 99.999% of the time, it was fun. I met someone, I got to know someone. You get dropped off right where you need to go. You don't even have to drive. You get to sit back and enjoy. Within the larger systemic context of our housing crisis, our environmental crisis, and our equity crisis, it's not ethical to prioritize parking over affordable housing. Parking is obviously a major concern, and I hear that business owners are frustrated by the lack of communication. I hear that business owners want to be more involved in this process, but so do community members. So do the college students who keep your businesses open, and we're all stakeholders because we're all invested in our future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I just want to let council know, it is 8:08. We have 9 more callers. That's a half an hour. Can you wait for a break until we listen to everybody? Yes. Okay.
All right. Maria Morrow.
Hello. I'm so happy to be going after Samantha Sweeney, who said so many of the things that are super important to me. So I high five and appreciate and back up everything that she just said. I am so for this project. I think it's wonderful. I hope that there will be more low income and affordable housing included in it. Why not go taller? And then I just wanted to speak up for the birds and the insects in hopes that for the rooftop garden that you'll use native plants, because it would be water smart, it would be less expensive for you, and it would support local wildlife. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Chris Byfield.
I'd first like to preface this by saying that I am totally in support of the housing and the transit ideas, but I don't understand why we have to choose between those and parking. I work with the Carson Block building, which is down the block from this proposed structure. And it's being in Old Town for the last 15 years that there really is a parking problem. And it's a little bit disingenuous of the city to show the parking study without spreading out the 70 some odd lost spots that are going to be taken away by the big lot behind the Lost Coast Brewery. And I guess I'll finish it by saying that there are so many underused or vacant buildings and lots in Eureka. And if the city is willing to put up shuttle, I don't understand why we're not kind of postponing this and looking at other spots in Eureka.
Thank you. Was that the end, Chris, or are you just distracted?
Yeah, no,
Somebody else talking?
It kind of disappeared on us, but yeah, no, I just want to say I don't understand what the rush is. We should wait and kind of look at viable options other places in Eureka, so it isn't a trade-off between parking and affordable housing, because I don't think you have to choose. There are so many underused and vacant lots and buildings in Eureka that it shouldn't have to be a choice like this, and we should slow down and maybe table this and look into other options. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I'd just like to remind everybody on Zoom, if you could mute unless you're talking.
Our next speaker is Ashley Shannon.
Hi, my name is Ashley Shannon. I am a Eureka resident, and I would like to say that I am in support of this project. I was a student at HSU who moved here from a major metropolitan city, and it was a huge struggle to get around. It was something I wasn't accustomed to. I almost never went to Eureka because I didn't have a car, and the buses at night in terms of nightlife were never running. And so I think that if there was this major transportation center, that would bring so many students to Old Town's nightlife, and you all would profit so much from it. Because if there was somewhere that you could safely get on the bus in a well-lit area and there's more people around, there's going to be less crime. When you have more people participating in your shopping centers, you're going to have more business, you're going to have more students exploring, you're going to have more people wanting to move to Eureka. I absolutely think that it's something we need to do, and it actually hurts my heart that there's so many people in this audience right now who are shaming our houseless neighbors. I think that everyone deserves to have a safe space to be, and I think that our houseless neighbors are not villains, and I think that we all need to remember that and stop using them as excuses to not put in affordable housing and say that it's just going to be covered with needles, because we need to advocate for our houseless neighbors, and we need to advocate for our community members, and affordable housing is the #1 way to do that. And I think that all the businesses in the area would profit off of that. I think that there would be more student traffic. I think Uber and Lyft would also probably benefit off this transportation center, and more students would take those options. More students would be driving and getting jobs like that. I absolutely support this. I also encourage this housing development to allow pets, because that's a really big issue here in Humboldt too. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Deborah Dukes.
Hi, my name is Deborah Dukes. I live about a mile from the proposed project, and I am completely in support of it. I concur with a number of previous speakers who suggested going higher. I think since we're using footprint in prime downtown Eureka, that we should make the most of it that we can. I have started walking a lot during the pandemic because it was that or bake sourdough. And I walked to Old Town and downtown a lot. I have started going into businesses a little more than I was for a while. When they were just selling on the curb, I bought from the curb. Now I'm going in a little bit more, including to some of the businesses owned by some of the people who spoke tonight. I respect them. I honor their entrepreneurship. And I think that they need to have reassurance that parking is not going to be a problem. That said, I also have a rental property that is about half a mile closer to downtown than I am. And those tenants walk to Old Town all the time. And one of the reasons they wanted to rent from me in that location was so that they could walk to Old Town and downtown. They do a lot of their shopping down there. The more people you have on the street, the more eyes you have on the street, the safer it will be for everyone. I like the idea of the shuttle, make it cute. I think that's a great idea. And let's get the business owners more involved in this because they clearly have concerns. Personally, I can hardly wait to go back into Lost Coast Brewery and get a beer. Not quite there yet, but soon. I strongly support it. I think it's going to bring in a lot more customers and clients than it will take away. And I hope you go ahead with it in this present location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cassandra.
Hi, I'd like to speak in favor of the project. A lot of wonderful points have been made as to the advantages of the project, and I just wanted to highlight the health aspect. I think an earlier speaker talked about, rebuilding instead of recovering, and I think during a time of climate crisis, maybe we should be talking about rebuilding and rebuilding for healthier communities, which involves higher density housing. And higher density housing in that location would provide easy access to the waterfront trail, which I think is an important highlight to mention. I think it would be really good for the health of the community, of people who could be living in this housing, to have access to that waterfront trail and the health benefits that would come from it. So I think it's really nice that so much thought has gone into this project, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Emily Segal.
Hi, I am a 25-year resident of Humboldt County, and I'm a business owner downtown, not in Old Town, but downtown. And I strongly, strongly support this project. Lots of people have said the kinds of reasons. I totally agree with the transportation and the climate issues, but I especially want there to be more housing for the people who work here. And there just isn't housing for people who work here. And this is going to provide some, and I would love it if it was more dense and provided more. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lulu Mickelson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for all the thoughtful work that went into this. I want to enthusiastically support moving forward with this project in its current location. We're hearing an exciting and resounding need for this type of transit and housing investment in our community. And we're also hearing that some folks do not want to use this site. And I just want to speak to that a little bit. Professionally, I've worked on housing policy, and I know how incredibly challenging it is to identify a site for the production of affordable housing. This publicly owned land has the power to be a solution to our housing and climate crises. This, to me, is a higher use than parking. I think it's also important to mention that the council recently voted to move forward with a deal to retain parking in Old Town and relocate housing to another part of Eureka to address the concerns that were brought up tonight by business owners. We need to compromise, and Old Town is the best place to build this type of housing. I also believe that it will really be a boost to our businesses and not a hindrance. I recently moved to the area to support caring for family during COVID, and even as someone with a stable income, it was incredibly challenging to find rental housing in the area. So I just want to enthusiastically support this. I'd love to see even more density. I love to see more projects like this. I believe that this is really the future of our community. It will ensure that our urban centers are thriving and that our wild and cultivated lands can remain beautiful, and that we don't sort of see housing pressure bubble out to development in these incredible open spaces that Humboldt is celebrated for. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give feedback tonight.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sherry.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for allowing us to speak tonight. I am a supporter of the proposed Earth Center. I moved here 6 years ago from San Diego, where in their old town and gas lamp areas, parking is truly a nightmare. I have never had a problem finding parking in Eureka. Every time I have gone to Old Town, I've only had to walk 2 to 3 blocks at most. If I have to walk a block or two more after the Earth Center goes in, I suppose I will notice businesses new to me that I've not noticed before. Better yet, I would love to use improved public transit to get to Eureka. My friends and I will make a point to have more beer and pizza at Lost Coast Brewery if we don't have to drive to get there. Housing is so much more important than a parking lot. I don't know if another floor of housing is feasible, but I would love to see more affordable housing. I would also like to see that housing deeded affordable in perpetuity. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Donna Wright.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. My name is Donna Wright, and I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Eureka Chamber of Commerce. I'm here this evening only to make a comment and neither for or against this project. I wish I could. Housing is very important to the success of our community and vitality of our businesses. Housing is and will be a priority to the focus of the Chamber in 2022. It is understood that staff are in meeting with what is required for legal transparency. However, legal transparency does not seem to be serving the community and our business owners, nor community engagement. At this time, we're hearing our members are looking to engage in meaningful discussions to ensure good long-term planning. We humbly request to be brought into these conversations well in advance, to work together with the city and city councillors and staff and the business community to discuss concerns and solutions for a vibrant and successful city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next caller is Victoria.
I think that's me.
That is
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I am an owner of a property in Old Town, and I do think that's a beautiful building. I think there's a lot of positives with that project, but I also think there are some negatives. And I think that part of that is there's a huge cost to this building, which is great. I know there's a lot of grant money involved. But that's a very large sum of money that maybe could be distributed in other ways. I personally have volunteered to clean out 2 planters down in the Old Town area, getting them power washed, making sure that the plants stay alive, and cleaning out the human feces that are constantly in them. So I'm thinking I'm personally paying as a private member of this community to beautify Eureka. And I do think this building is a beautification of Eureka, but I do think there's some compromises that everybody should make. I mean, maybe there's some parking that can be incorporated in this building, or maybe there's another location, or maybe just taking everybody's thoughts into consideration would be a good thing. As well as the amount of money that's being spent on this building. I can only imagine what that amount of money spread out over the city of Eureka in places that are already there would do, as well as there's a safety issue, like the people that, maybe the few people that will live in that building, are they planning to are you planning to have any sort of safety, like patrol or police presence at all? I just know that I have to call City of Eureka PD about 5 times per week for a property that I own in Eureka that people constantly are vandalizing. So I'm just hoping that that's taken into consideration as part of the financial part of it. I mean, it all seems beautiful and wonderful, but at the same time, the reality of it when it's actually built and on the ground, how beautiful is it going to be when there's people shitting on it, for lack of a better term. So anyway, just all thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our last caller with their hand raised is Ash.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to echo some of the previous callers in that this project, while it does seem like a really pretty picture when I looked at it, and you got some good features and all that, that might be kind of putting the cart before the horse with the state of the city as it is. Like there's as many business owners elaborated, there's lots of issues in the city, and like for instance with the picture, looking at that very long bus bench on it, all I could think is that the bus benches we currently have in the city, they're all like these little metal ones with this little bar that kind of separates the bench because people just end up sleeping on them. And I think that unless there's some effort into making the city better, that you're going to spend all this money and it's just going to get trashed. It's just going to be a big waste of money. Like some previous people spoke on that, and if you took that money and gave it to people who had like all the lofts and apartments that are currently there, that they could use it to repair them and create probably the same or even more housing. So I think the city should really just think about that and just the impact of the community. And also I was wondering, like, with the city's stance on vaccine passports and whatnot, is that going to be like put forth on all the tenants there as well? Are people going to be fully vaccinated to reside in these new dwellings? Are the construction crews and their contractors of the city, are they all going to have to be fully vaccinated to work on this project? And there's a lot of things to consider in this, the way the world's shifting here. And I know we're set to be some new hub here with the new cable coming across the ocean and all the grant money coming in for this, that, and the other thing. But I think instead of just building new crap all the time, maybe we should fix some of the stuff we have and put some money back into the community. I mean, how much improvement has really came from the money that was put into the cooperation Humboldt to help the homeless here? And what programs have they done? Are we going to be on with I know we're already doing needle exchange, but the Biden administration just rolled out the crack pipe exchange, and that's like a real thing. Is that going to be something that our community works on as well? It's just come get your fresh crack pipe here along with your fresh needle. It's getting pretty crazy. So I think we should work on fixing stuff up before we really put any more money into big investments.
Ash, it's been 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice night.
That is our final public comment. So if you all don't mind, I think we'll take, do we need more than 5 minutes? Let's take 5 minutes and come back. Comment. So now we are going to have deliberations and perhaps a motion from the council. So does anybody have anything to say? Councilmember Burgell.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I can't be there. I too got a positive that I didn't really enjoy. I was just curious if we could have some of the questions maybe looked at. First of all, I was curious if maybe City Manager Slattery could speak to, or someone could speak to the urgency. There's been a lot of talk in public comment about why this is so important to be done now, as opposed to, giving it a lot more time.
So as council is aware, we've discussed this over the period of the last year related to our housing element. We had a big delay in our housing element because of State Lands Act regulations, Surplus Land Act regulations and other issues associated with that. So we're significantly behind in our timing in compliance with that. And so we've received correspondence from HCD about needing to expedite this and catch up to the delays that we've had. It's one of the reasons. Another reason is the grant that HTA is seeking is due, and that is the reason why we're here. This was noticed back in November as an MOU. A lot of I wouldn't say a lot, but there were business owners that this had been discussed with prior to that. So, it's very similar. We did the 3 public meetings related to the parking lots that ended up being exchanged for. And it dates all the way back to then. That process delayed it somewhat, but more so the surplus land regulations. But main reason is we have made a commitment to HCD to submit an updated housing element within the next 2 weeks for their review. And that is a main component of this, and they are a main reason why we're here now. But this dates back to prior to that as well.
But that definitely speaks to why we can't put it off for, 2 months or 6 more meetings or something. Also, I'm curious, can the density be expanded on this project?
It can. There's some cost prohibitiveness to some of that. I think if it goes up 2 more stories, it would just need to. It depends on what it looks like, whether it's a master lease, whether the people that are interested in the units want to buy that. It affects the numbers as to whether or not the project pencils out. But yes, there is a capability to expand at a minimum 1 more floor. But yes, there is an opportunity to expand the density.
And then lastly, another clarification question. So is there in place now, I've heard about the shuttle and some of these other parking places that we have available, but is there a parking management, dumpster management mitigation stuff happening now? Or is that something that would be identified after the project? I'm just curious how, to me, this seems like a win-win project if we can get that portion of it kind of dialed in.
So there is a location set for protected refuse location, and currently staff is working in other locations, Opera Alley, Snug Alley, on programs similar to that, where we're combining debris boxes and creating structures for them to be protected. One would be behind Los Bagels. Another one is on Opera Alley, adjacent to Clark Plaza. And so we have been offering that. We've been looking at this for a long time, and then also we're going to be coming back to council with a potential incentive / ordinance related to that very issue.
Last clarification, promise. Can you speak to other locations? I've heard that a lot tonight. I want it, it's beautiful, but why can't it be somewhere else? And could you speak to the research that went into that?
So this, once again, dates back to May of 2021 when we had the meetings related to the properties that were exchanged for a couple of meetings ago. These properties were identified as being out of the coastal zone, owned by the city, and in compliance with the zoning regulations required to achieve the densities that we need to achieve. Those properties that the city owns that are vacant or parking lots or whatever they may be are typically in the coastal zone. These are the properties that are not. We had discussions in May, and there was the similar sentiment from the business community about how this is going to be devastating. And so staff made the offer of working with the business community and being willing to exchange properties. And that over that 5 to 6 month period has resulted in the exchange of properties from the city exchanging 5th and K, 5th and H, and 4th and G for private property. That, was how we got to that point. So right now, these are the properties that we own and are zoned appropriately for the developments that we need to develop.
Great. Thanks for those
Oh,
clarifications.
and sorry, furthermore, we don't have money to go and buy property for the purpose of developing housing. There are grant programs out there like the Home Key grant, but those are typically for renovations, and they are typically for not affordable housing, but more for transitional or permanent supportive housing.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. I'll let someone else talk now.
Right on, Councilmember Bauer.
And I don't know if City Manager Slatter, you can answer this question, but there was a lot of concern about cost. I guess my question would be, would a similar building anywhere else in the world cost the same? We're talking about new development. We're talking about in an earthquake-prone area. We're talking about all these things that require, some significant engineering. So I don't think people grasp what it costs to build.
No, especially now, the cost of construction is expensive. Anybody can tell you that. I think Garrett could expand on this a little bit more, but a lot of the conversation was surrounding grant funding. There's a small portion of that $30 million is going to be from grant funding that goes towards this project. The majority of this is coming from a tax-exempt bond that will be taken out by a nonprofit that's going to be managing and operating the development. And Garrett, if you'd like more explanation, could explain that more. But it's not grant money. The funds that come from this, any excess cash that comes from this, comes back to the city, and a portion of that cash is going to be going to help supplement the and subsidize the affordable component here. And there was a lot of discussion about, medical professionals. There's only 4 units that are currently here in a preliminary form. They're not set in stone for travel, for not necessarily travel, but for medical professionals. It could be for permanent housing for them as well. The majority of this, the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, are all considered affordable. They're apartments for students. Those are affordable units. They'll be either low income or very low income. And then there's another 12 units of affordable units. Those are the units that the city will be subsidizing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Councilmember Moulton.
We talked a bit about, obviously folks are concerned about parking, and we talked about the study that shows the different uses of the lots in Old Town. Is there a plan in place to mitigate parking? Everybody says we need one. Can staff speak to it? Are there any ideas already out there, already in the works of where parking spaces will be taken up when these are lost?
So that's what that study for. I know there was some concern about not showing the lots. The reason for that was, Scott can provide data on that. I think they are more heavily used than some of our lots. But the reason for that was to demonstrate that of the 78 spaces that are going to be gone, there's more than ample room in other parking lots to make up for that. And the mitigation for that was the shuttle, which would be an electronic shuttle, travels from before 8 a.m. to after 5:30 p.m. on a Monday through Friday basis, and provides transportation. That's one of the mitigation measures that we came up with. But as Special Project Manager Elsmore had discussed, that traffic study that's a part of the waterfront specific plan, that is going to determine other mitigation measures, whether it's the permit parking for local businesses to utilize the lots, whether it's doing permit parking on the streets, whether it's, eliminating some 2-hour parking or adding 30-minute parking. All of those things are going to be analyzed, because the whole intent of that Eureka waterfront plan is for infill development. It is a grant that was received to comply with the policies that are in our general plan, which looks for development very similar to this. And when you do that infill, that grant that came for the parking study was to analyze parking issues and finding mitigation measures for them.
And I'm wondering too, Connie Stewart did offer HSU to, if we wanted to discuss mitigation issues further, their services and or resources. I think she just said resources, but yeah. I would encourage us to take advantage of that. Councilmember Arroyo and then Councilmember Castellano.
Okay, I have a few notes. I wanted to start by thanking everyone again for coming out to share thoughts. I think it was really, Connie Stewart, I think, mentioned that it was one of the better public meetings as far as, I think, I'm inferring in what she was trying to say that people were really speaking from the heart and, or maybe I should just speak for myself. I heard people speaking from the heart and also being really blunt about what their concerns about the project were or the reasons that they support it. And I really appreciate the directness that people brought. And one thing that Nick Cole said really stuck with me, that the council needs to acknowledge the pain and the change that this is. And this is kind of a tricky moment in time, given what COVID has done to businesses in our community and the ups and downs that they face. So I want to maybe start things off by saying that I do acknowledge that. And I realize it takes a lot of guts and a lot of time. This isn't, maybe anyone's favorite way to spend, a Wednesday night, to come here and speak your mind. And I really appreciate it. I have been pretty vociferously in support of this project the whole time that we've been talking about it. And I do want to also note that I'm the president of the HTA board. And so, in that role, I've also seen the HTA had this opportunity to further some of our regional objectives for transit, while also complementing this opportunity for the city of Eureka. And it emerged from, the city's interest in building housing, and then HTA had this opportunity to add on to that, and to bring some benefit to that by being able to apply for this grant. So the grant is not, money in hand yet, but I do think it's interesting when people talk about grant money and it's like, well, it's all taxpayer money, but it's like, if we don't apply for it, we're not going to get it. So why would we leave that money on the table and not consider applying for it if it could bring benefits to our region? So I've lately been hearing all this like anti-grant money sentiment that I don't totally understand, because I believe that part of our role and part of the organization's boards that we serve on's role is to better our community. And if that means applying for available resources to bring into this community, well, then by golly, I think we should do it. So in this case, we've got, the opportunity for a really big grant that will benefit transit riders in our region and the organization long-term. And I think it'll benefit Eureka really long-term. And I'm really troubled by some of the ways that people talk about transit riders. And frankly, it makes me hopping mad to hear them characterized as bad people, because they're people in our community that need to get around. And, they're you and me and everybody else. And if you choose to drive by car, that doesn't mean that transit riders are inherently bad and you're better. So it's upsetting to hear. I don't think I need to lecture about why that's upsetting, but it's really frustrating to hear. And incidentally, the drawing I'm looking at doesn't have any long benches. It just has overhangs for people to stand under. But anyway, moving on to a couple more points. I would say, and I said this in our last meeting, that I think there's a real crime prevention element of this project. And actually the study of crime prevention through environmental design really emphasizes that defining appropriate uses for a space and bringing more eyes and ears of people to use a space 24/7 and more of a sense that people are being observed all the time in a community area, like on the streets of Old Town, makes communities safer. So I think there's a real public safety element there. And again, I'm not sure why people are talking about residents of low-income housing as making a place more unsafe, because those are residents of the community who are there providing that natural surveillance to actually minimize the incidences of crime. And hundreds of students and doctors and nurses and teachers sure do spend money. So I concur with everyone who said, I know where they're going to quaff a beer. I think there's some real benefits for businesses as well. Some businesses perhaps more than others, depending on their business type. The city doesn't own other large lots that are developable in the way that this one is. So it would be great if we had money just laying around to buy other properties and develop them for housing. And maybe there will be funding sources for that in the future. But these funding sources that we're talking about are not set up that way. So the opportunities that we have right now are to develop properties that we own, which are very limited. And we've already talked about how, some of the other ones weren't seen as suitable. And so we did end up, coming to a compromise and figuring out a way to move forward. But now we're looking at this lot because it's already the transit, main transit hub for Eureka. And finally, and I'll stop lecturing after this, I have to say that I don't believe that individual interests, even though we greatly appreciate our business community, I don't believe any one person or a group of, individuals' interests can be sacrosanct in all city decisions. Like when it comes to what we have to weigh, I simply don't believe that we can always put the interests of private business owners before the interests of other people in our community. We can't always do that. And there are times when we do that. And I believe there are times we have recently done that. And, ultimately that can't be sacrosanct in my view. So even though it's hard to sit here and hear the frustration and know that it's really going to upset people in our community, I'm not here to win a popularity contest. And so I think, ultimately, we need to move forward with the thing that we think is going to be best for the community. And I think that this project, including the transit component, will serve an enormous number of people. And that's why I asked Greg Pratt here to talk about the number of riders that we're seeing, even during a pandemic, 60,000 people going through that spot. And using it, and who will be better served by the proposed project, not to mention all the housing. Okay, maybe just one more thing. I'll insert one more thing, and then I swear I'll pass the mic. So I'm actually a student at Cal Poly Humboldt. I'm getting my master's degree, and I'm taking a rural economic development class. That's fascinating and really helpful. And our very own local Greg Foster with Redwood Region Economic Development Commission came in to speak to my class, which was kind of fun. He was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" But he was talking about how, when our class was looking at the Prosperity 2018 study and the results of that. And that's in the process of being updated, and a new one is just about to come out. And he was talking about the differences between 2018 and 2022 in our community, and how we're no longer really looking for big businesses to come in as employers in our community. Perhaps we would benefit from some, but ultimately we have actually too many employees without, too many jobs and kind of a shortage of employees. And part of what's contributing to that is the lack of housing. And so he really emphasized that workforce housing is going to be at the forefront of our economic development picture in the future. And I thought that was really important to bring up because I don't know if we always think about housing as economic development, but it truly is. So I'll pass it to Leslie, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Councilmember Castellano.
Thanks. And it's been good to hear everyone tonight. And just very exciting to have so much thoughtful energy and presence in the room about the community, even when there's differences in perspectives. One thing I really valued in tonight is that people universally were supportive of more housing. So I just want to say, if anything, I was like, yes, we all want more housing in our community. And to that point, I will just say I am happy to meet and talk with any of you about how to make that happen, whether you're a private developer or a homeowner who wants to put in an ADU or any kind of housing. I'm just happy that that's happening. That being said, any housing will have an impact because it changes the landscape. And that's something that I realize is hard. And, people get very attached to what their community is in the here and now. But as someone who has lived here for, almost 25 years, but who didn't grow up here, it's the community's changed. The community's changed since I've been here. And, Cal Poly, Humboldt, will bring a change. The climate will bring a change. And so I'm really proud of the city and of this project for addressing that in a way that's responsible and respectful and proactive versus waiting until the changes bring problems that are much harder to address and deal with. Some of the things I heard is just that the community wants more engagement around this. And I agree. And, it's been really hard during the pandemic, to be perfectly honest, to find good ways to engage in public discourse. And, I know I could do better and, and I know that it's an ongoing challenge. And so I'm really going to work to engage more. And I also recognize we've had opportunities in the past that kind of get lost. And I think just the immensity of the world right now of, it's been hard to think about, we did this, these strategic visionings 4 years ago and it just kind of gets lost in I think the real and present changes that have taken place in terms of the pandemic. And I do think that though we're doing things to support businesses with grants and supporting different kinds of use of land like parklets and outdoor dining. And I think it just needs to be an ongoing process. But we have been, and let's just keep doing it. And for sure, I want to hear from businesses about, new ideas for that. When I thought about asking for staff to continue working on parking, and because I'm like, I have all these people, and I thought, actually, I would think I would rather ask for staff to continue working on access, because, and that would include scooters and bikes and people who maybe, use chairs to get around, or people who are have a harder time walking. And so that's just, and who use cars. And I just think that access to and from places, we just need to do more work and communicating how that might be. Relatedly, I love cute trolleys. I may have lost some decorum earlier and arm pumped or something about cute trolleys, and I apologize. And then also, I just think there's an opportunity for the creative inclusion group to maybe reach out to, I know of at least 4 organizations in within a few blocks that do support people who also have disabilities. Trajectory, Tri-County Independent Living, Radiant Living, the Studio, Sherry Blackerby Gallery, and Redwood Coast Regional Center. I don't know, I feel like sometimes there's invisibility around people who have different ways of accessing society, and I just think that could be great partners and could have some real input on access as well in terms of this project. And yeah, I do think that, I parked in that parking lot today. It's directly across from where I work. And I know that I'll have to, my goal is to bike ride more. But there may be days where I take a trolley. Hopefully there's an artist and mural inside of it. And I would rather change my patterns and create opportunities for other people than stay as comfortable as I currently am. And I think ultimately that will bring me more joy. So that's my feeling about that. And I had an emotional feeling. And then I guess just generally I support greater density and let's do it if we can, and deed restricted affordable housing as well. That's all.
So I'd actually like to follow up on Leslie's comment because I am really interested in, continuing the conversation about parking. I really appreciate the access. I think I like that even better. And I would really like to encourage staff, and this might be a great way to utilize HSU, to do customer-centered design or people-centered design on the development of it. So it's not done in-house and presented, but really with a lot of community engagement, and using that method of customer-centered or people-centered design. Councilmember,
Real quick, do we need to extend the meeting?
9:30.
9, right?
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Arroyo.
My long list of notes, and in my excitement, I missed something. So I just wanted to note that, someone said to lead by example and put some parking close to City Hall. Housing close to City Hall, and we are in fact doing that right next door, literally in one of our own City Hall parking lots. So I think our employees will experience that, but we think it's for the best there as well. But I've been reading a lot about parking lately, and ultimately I'm not here to debate whether or not there's an issue with parking in that lot, because I think that housing and these other uses will serve so many more people ultimately, especially transit users. But when we talk about the number of people that we're serving, that's where we get those incredible numbers. But we'll also serve people who need housing, and I hope that we can also increase the density. But ultimately, I'm not here to say there's not a parking problem. But I've been reading a lot about parking and the transition that many cities are having with parking as they develop more infill, areas and do more infill development. There was this lengthy article that I read where someone was talking about our friends came to meet us downtown and they left because they couldn't find parking. And we were mystified because, all of us are smart people, and there was, in fact, parking. It was just a couple blocks away. But what they really meant by it was they didn't know how to find the parking that existed, or they didn't know the mechanisms to get to the right places to park that were no longer obvious to them. And they didn't understand, once they were there, exactly how to get around, whether there's a trolley, a cute electric trolley, or some other mechanism. And so, I'd like to see that our study include recommendations about parking signage so people can find it better. Perhaps, a page on our city website, which many cities have, that talks about parking opportunities, and maybe we already have that and I just haven't found it yet. But mechanisms to communicate with people better about the lots that are there, because I've been doing my own scoping of parking, and I have been ever since I lived in Old Town. And I know where the secret spots are, and they're all public parking lots. I also park on the street all the time, but I know the secret spots, and they probably shouldn't be a secret from our tourists and visitors. So making sure to communicate that better, I think makes a lot of sense. And I agree that there are actually many spots that are underutilized, but people just maybe don't see them right away. So I'd love to see that we do some more signage and wayfinding, not just wayfinding for other attractions in Old Town, but also letting people know where parking is.
All right. Just, yeah. Okay, Councilmember Moulton and then Bauer.
I had a question. First, thank you. I think a lot of the stuff that I wanted to say has been covered by these two very intelligent people. And I had a question about access for folks who aren't necessarily able to walk a few blocks from parking. Would it be possible to have handicap parking on the street, have more like a handicap spot per block or something like that, so that folks like the customers of the investment firm who spoke earlier would be able to park a car there?
So yes, and Special Project Manager Ellsmore, if you're still here and I chop this up, let me know. But yes, we have had applications for ADA parking in front of businesses, and we have accommodated that. As a matter of fact, we used to have one right out in front of City Hall here for a while until we updated the parking lot on 5th and K, and we're likely going to have to do that again once that property exchanges hands. And so yes, there is a possibility to incorporate handicap parking on the street.
So you say application, so the business itself would need to apply and say that there's a greater need for handicap parking specifically near them?
I'm pretty sure that's happened in the past.
Scott's on the line.
Scott, could you answer? I know that we have done it that way. There may be another way as well. Scott?
Yeah, I'm here. No, you're right there on both you guys. Yeah, there's a couple different ways it can be done. Is an individual business can reach out to the city and we can work with them on finding a spot, location for an ADA space. We can also work with Eureka Main Street and try to find locations that fit for multiple businesses. So we have a few down there, and we're definitely it's a possibility of adding more. That's definitely a thing. So.
Okay, thank you. And then I just wanted to comment when I was the one who made the eat your vegetables comment, and that was not in regards to housing, that was in regards to climate change, which is that less people have cars, and less people are going to have cars, and less people need to have cars. We need to support businesses in Old Town, and that means bringing more people into Old Town, not more cars into Old Town. I believe this project will benefit businesses. I believe it will decrease crime, and I believe it will increase the quality of life in Eureka. And I haven't heard anything yet today that contradicts that.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
I just had to add, we talk about transportation a lot, and I didn't know this until I was talking to one of my neighbors that there used to be a trolley that went all the way down Myrtle Avenue to Harrison, and there was trolleys in Old Town. And it's like we're coming full circle. We used to use those things because they were convenient, and they were, you jump on a trolley and there was somebody on there you knew, and you talked on the way to work, and it was a really pleasant thing to do, So transportation, I hope the stigmatism behind public transportation is going to change. It just is. I wanted to bring up an important thing I looked up, that the population of Eureka grew by 2.2% in 20 years, from the 2000 census to the 2020 census. And I thought that's not that much. But then I looked at Seattle, which is a huge, metropolis, 2.2%, almost exactly the same. So people really want to live in Seattle, and they really want to live in Eureka. And we have to do something about that. We have to make space for people. And sometimes that decision is hard, and it affects people, and I totally understand that, but we don't have a choice. Not only people that are going to come for Cal Poly, but people are going to come from Reading. And I met those people last summer when it was on fire. They're like, I'm here because it's on fire. I want to be here. And we don't have it available. So we have to do something. And it's going to be painful for somebody somewhere in our community, but we don't have a choice. People want to be here, and we should welcome them, because those are people that are going to use our businesses. They're going to bring value to our communities. So I'm excited about it. I know it's hard, and we'll be looking at mitigation for this, and this project passing isn't going to stop us from looking at our parking situation. And I think in the future, people are going to do a lot less driving. We have to. We don't have a choice. So I'm happy about this project happening.
All right, Councilmember Castellano.
I just have a question for council. A lot of folks talked about greater density or adding another story if possible. I definitely support that. I know, there could be a chance that the funding doesn't work out, but I just would be curious if if other members also support that.
More density?
I
Ken's
would
got a thumbs up too.
Oh, I wanted to comment on that. One thing that I think is interesting about this and beneficial is the mixed income of it. The fact that there are units in there specifically for like medical professionals, and I wouldn't want to lose that. I think that having housing up and down the scale is important, and that there will be more affordable housing development in Old Town coming real soon.
Councilmember Arroyo.
I definitely support greater density. I would just, I'd like to kind of understand, we need to meet certain guidelines for this to be, both affordable housing and, like you're saying, to include, other income levels as well. And that helps us with our arena numbers and meet our objectives as a community. But we'll just need to, I think, maybe express that desire and have our very talented team come up with some additional information around that. I think if we're going to take up this parking lot with housing, we may as well go for as much as we can get so that we're able to maximize the benefit, given that it's, it's going to be hard for some to see that change. So we may as well maximize what we can get out of it.
All right. Councilmember Burgell, did you have something to say?
First of all, I'd like to say I don't like being on Zoom. Away from everybody, just saying. So I would support the denser housing. I think that, I think Councilmember Arroyo said it well, is, while we're building, we might as well build and use the space that we have. I believe that this project is absolutely in line with our vision for the city through our strategic visioning. It's beautiful. The real concerns that I still see us having is I would really like to see a timeline or something that's going to give us an idea about when. I love the idea of access, but to give the business owners, that community in Old Town, an opportunity to look at the parking management plan. Like, when can that be done? When can they have a peek at that? When can we start working to move forward? I know we have a study that's going on now, but I certainly would like to see this portion of it done sooner than later. I know we haven't even gotten the grant, but yet, but certainly I'd like to have this addressed sooner than later and have a timeline in place.
So we do have the grant in place. The survey's been done. We've received the report, and then
did we receive the grant?
Yes.
Oh, we did receive the grant.
Yes.
That's what happens when you're out for a week.
And so the survey's been done. We have the report, and I think Scott could maybe provide a little better timeline as far as when the draft recommendations are going to be coming out.
Yeah, thanks. So we're working on draft recommendations right now. We'll have another outreach stakeholder meeting here in the next couple of weeks. And then we have a meeting with the Transportation Safety Commission to go over proposals, as well as we'll be going to council likely in March to go over those as well. So we've got about 3 more opportunities to reach out to everybody and kind of get everybody up to speed on it.
So when you speak to stakeholders, who exactly are you speaking about?
So
because I feel like it just sounds like that the businesses didn't really feel like they were stakeholders in this process, as well as some other different people. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the next stakeholder meeting will be set up through Eureka Main Street, so we can get as many business folks involved as we can to get their input as well. We've done surveys and such to try to get folks to give us some input on current conditions, but the next stakeholder meeting will be with downtown merchants through Eureka Main Street. And then, like I said, Transportation Safety Commission and council after that.
Okay, because honestly, I mean, I worked in Old Town 15 years. No, it's been almost 18 years ago, I guess now. And there was always a hard to find a parking place. And so I hear what business owners are saying, and I want the project. So I want us to be able to mitigate those issues together and move through so that we can have a win-win situation. So I'm all in on this project.
with that caveat.
All right, Councilmember Royal.
I'd just like to encourage folks who are listening and want to look at what the parking data is so far. I mean, I know that some was given tonight, but eurekaparkingstudy.com, again, that's eurekaparkingstudy.com. If you scroll down on the front page or click on parking data, there's some pretty interesting data that it looks like we've already assembled and made available publicly. So if folks are wanting to look at something else that provides some information, that's a good resource. So thanks staff for compiling that information. It sounds like we'll be getting it pretty darn soon. So that's good.
So I don't want to rush anybody, but I'm just curious if anybody wants to make a motion
Well,
or
I
have
mean,
more conversation.
No, the motion has been amended, right? So we probably need to see it on the.
Through the mayor, can I talk about the density thing? So that,
Yes.
you know, that is the idea. And I know everybody's talked about deeds and perpetuity. The government code section that exempted this property from the surplus land legislation requires that it be at least 30 years. So at least 30 years, this will be meeting the guidelines of government code section 37364. So as far as more density, that's something that we'd really like to do. It's going to be very much so contingent on the numbers panning out and also having participation. So we've been in discussions with medical professionals, with other agencies that are looking for housing. And so it's going to be contingent upon them being interested in it. We will also solicit Humboldt State University and maybe potential CR to see if they have more interest in more density. And so that's definitely going to be, but we'll need to make sure that it pencils out. And typically by adding these units, it will, depending on whether they buy it or whether they do a master lease. And then as far as the proportion of affordable units, that's another thing that we'll need to comply with Government Code Section 37364 and making sure that at a minimum 40% of the units are affordable and half of those being very low. So we can keep with that. So if there's anybody out there that is looking for housing and are interested in either a master lease or owning a condominium style, call Garrett Sharton at Servitas.
Yeah, I was taking notes during all the testimony. The only thing that wasn't addressed was the deed restriction. And Miles is correct. It needs to comply with section 37364. But also, if the community would like those deed restrictions to extend beyond what that section requires, the project can withstand that as well.
All right. And now we wait. Councilmember Arroyo.
I move that we adopt a resolution of the City of Eureka City Council to lease and develop the 2 city-owned parcels on 3rd between G and H Street through a public-private partnership, including the language change that Miles mentioned earlier in our meeting would you like to, I will ask you to read those into the record again, and then I'll include them in my motion.
So it'd be adding to the government code section in paragraph 1C, parentheses F. I should probably put my glasses on. I apologize. F1A. And then also add a new paragraph 7 to the now therefores, where it states that the development will meet the requirements of government code section 37364, subdivisions B, C, and D in parentheses.
And that pertains to affordability requirements.
It has provisions related to that, but that pertains to the exemption from the surplus land legislation.
Gotcha. Okay. So that is the motion.
I'll second it.
All right.
I'm way over here.
Thank you, Councilmember Burgell.
And I just want to be clear that March, you're going to bring back the parking mitigation plan.
So as special project, we got to change your title, Scott. This is killing me. Special project manager Ellsmore stated, I don't think he put a date to that. The March date is the first public meeting for the waterfront specific plan. So that's the March 10th at 6 o'clock, which will be a Zoom meeting. And that'll be one of 5 public meetings held related to the plan itself. What Scott was speaking of was a component of that plan, which is solely related to parking. And Scott, could you provide dates for that?
Yeah, thanks. We were looking at the second meeting in March.
Second meeting in March. Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. I think everybody's talked out. Let's have a vote.
Go ahead and vote with the lights. And
Oh,
then
that's right. And then you'll have to ask Councilmember Burgell.
And Councilmember Burgell?
Yes. Yes.
All right, hang on just one sec. Unanimous yes vote, motion carries.
All right. And with that, I believe we get to adjourn the meeting. And we'll see y'all next week for the official longer council meeting.